What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Long Run Podcast. This is Adam, and I'm joined by some of my favorite people in the entire world. We've got a smaller crew today, actually, with one person being someone who's been here from the very beginning, but also someone making their podcast debut. It's one of those episodes. But the other thing about this episode, too, is we're going to be talking about what is apparently the worst MCU movie ever in the Eternals. Is it actually true? What does the crew think? We'll talk all about it here on this episode. Before we even get to the Eternals, though, it's time to introduce our guest today. You know him, you love him. Bojangles, aka the man who has been here from the very beginning. I actually saw the movie with. We saw it together right before Thanksgiving. He's last seen from Dune, the only one returning from Dune. How are you doing today, Jake?
I'm the only one that made it out. The rest fell.
They're stuck on Arrakis.
They're stuck on. The Baron got them. And I'll say, spoiler alert: it's not the worst movie. What would be the worst movie in Marvel? I'll think on that. All right, but yeah, what's up?
Yeah.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, Jake is on vacation. He's celebrating some well-deserved break, some well-deserved rest, eating some good grub from his dad, living the life. And our second guest today, the last one today, it's going to be a small crew, like I said, is going to be Donovan, making his podcast debut. One of my brothers, someone who I've been very, very close with, one of my favorite humans in the entire world. So happy that he could finally make it onto the podcast, and I'm sure this will be one of many in the future. He also just joined Riot Games as a senior production coordinator on Valorant, so make sure you show your boy some love. Donovan, how are you doing today, brother?
I am chilling, and I'm very glad to be here. This is exciting. Definitely going to agree Eternals is not the worst MCU movie. I will not be taking questions at this time, maybe after, but happy to be here.
Hell yeah.
Thor 2. Thor 2 was the worst.
That's exactly right.
Thor 2 was the worst. Sorry, Malav.
I was about to say, you better watch out, Jake. Malav might come after you.
Yeah, Malav's going to be so bad I forgot about it.
Yeah, so right off the bat, one thing I want to say is that I think all of us are in agreement is that Eternals is not the worst movie, MCU movie. No, not at all. But I think what we're all going to come down on different aspects of how much we actually like it, which is going to be an interesting discussion overall. So before we even get into Eternals, the movie, one thing I wanted to ask both of you is how have you been feeling about the MCU and specifically MCU Phase 4 between the movies and the TV shows?
Do you have Donovan? Do you have Disney Plus?
I do. I've seen everything up to the newest Hawkeye episode from today.
Ooh. So what do you think then?
Yeah.
So I think so far I think it's been as strong as it can be. Obviously, we're coming off the heels of so many of these really great characters. Yeah. Iron Man, Captain America passing the mantle. Right. So many people are just kind of like passing on the torch, and it's like, well, what comes next? Because these guys are so iconic, and they're incredible. And I think that, the explorations that they've done for Loki as a character, Wanda and Vision, like everything has been really exciting. Shang-Chi, one of the best MCU movies. They did an incredible job there. I think they're holding their own. And we have some really great things on the horizon with, Spider-Man No Way Home, and a bunch of really great shows coming next year. She-Hulk is going to be coming out. Right. We have like Blade, all these cool things. Doctor Strange, Miss Marvel. Yeah. So I think it's definitely doing as great as it can be right now, coming off of a really strong Phase 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you. Now, Jake, I know you haven't been able to watch as much Phase 4 because you said there's not a theater near your place over in where you're at, unfortunately. So have you been able to watch anything Phase 4 related at all, Disney Plus or movies at all?
I think I watched a little bit of some, like my mom's got Disney Plus, and I forgot to ask her for it, but I watched a bit of the Hawkeye stuff with her, and I like that so far. I'm a little soft. Oh, go on.
No, I say in general, you've been a fan of the MCU regardless, though, even though you haven't been seeing much of Phase 4.
Well, yeah, I mean, as much as I see them, I enjoyed it. I was honestly pretty marveled out after
Endgame.
Endgame, yeah. I was kind of done. I liked Black Widow when I saw it. That was fun. That was good. Though not really for Black Widow, honestly. kind of the
Right.
weakest part. I just like the rest of it mostly. Or like the thing that I saw for Hawkeye, that was fun. It seems like people are enjoying it. So, but from what I like, I don't know. This stuff, the Eternals was just it was something else, man. It wasn't like any Marvel that I'd seen before. So that was refreshing.
That's for sure, man. So I'm right there with Donovan in terms of I actually really enjoyed MCU Phase 4. Not perfect, of course, but I don't think any MCU phase was. But I'm certainly excited for the future based on what we've seen. The Eternals is such an interesting thing. I'm not sure how familiar both of you are with the actual property, but this was like Jack Kirby, the guy who famously co-created so many of the characters that we all love. This was his baby, and like it's like yeah, that was his, and Jack Kirby's a genius. But if you go back and read the comics, they're definitely a little hard to get through.
Oh yeah, I can
Yeah, and
imagine. I can imagine
yeah,
trying to read through that. You'd be like, What is this?"
yeah, and even though the art is great because Jack is just a genius, it's definitely hard to get through. That's part of why it was canceled, and also that's part of why it's so obtuse. I think, in a way. Did any of you have any exposure to the Eternals, or were you going in blind for this?
I went in completely blind. I knew nothing. Just
Yeah, I
like
didn't know
Guardians of the
nothing.
Galaxy.
Yeah. Yeah, I only knew of them. I haven't read any of the Eternals comics. I just know the general
Oh,
premise. So
did 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 the guy always look like He-Man? Because one of the Eternals looks like He-Man.
oh yeah, Icarus. Yeah, he looks like He-Man
Oh man.
in the comics. He always looked like He-Man. So the interesting thing about this movie, from what I understand, is that Chloe Zhao, the director, who famously won the best director and best picture at the Oscars last year for Nomadland, something I have not seen. Chloe Zhao was actually in the running to direct Black Widow, but then she like counter offered. Something happened where she actually pitched them like, oh, actually, I'd love to do Eternals, and they were already looking for someone to do Eternals,
Mm.
so they chose her. And the thing is as well, part of the reason why they chose her is because apparently they were so impressed by her presentation that they were scared that she was going to go and do another big budget movie. So they're like, all right, let's just get her. Like
Oh,
like that was so good. Like let's make sure we get her before she goes somewhere else, like DC or something like that.
Oh
Um,
no, DC could have finally had a like really good movie. Damn.
God forbid.
God forbid, indeed. So that's part of why Chloe was brought on, which is obviously amazing. I haven't seen Nomadland, but certainly something that's on my list. But I think she certainly creates or brings a directorial sensibility, even though this is still distinctly Marvel. But it's like I'm shocked that this was the first like really controversial MCU thing that I've seen. Um, how did both of you feel? Because did both of you hear about the controversy going into the movie, or were you going in blind as well for something like
Now,
that?
when you say controversy, do you mean like something happened with the actors, or was it just angry reeing from nerds on the
It,
internet?
it was more like for the first time, the critical reception was not nearly universal for a Marvel movie. It has the lowest score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh,
That's
so
what
it
I
was
mean by
critics that were
controversy.
reeing.
Critically correct.
Oh,
Yeah.
they made. I felt like I heard like people, not critics, were disappointed. But I'm kind of surprised to hear that critics were disappointed because it seemed like more interesting than most Marvel movies. Something that I mean, was it rated higher than? Was it rated worse than other Marvel movies?
It's the
Yeah.
lowest rated on Rotten Tomatoes. The lowest. That's
But
why I said it's apparently the worst MCU movie because it's the lowest on Rotten
but
Tomatoes.
why?
Because
That's
it's the classic rule.
yeah.
People don't know anything. People are just stupid. And I will die on that hill because like I don't know. I heard the same thing going into it,
Yeah.
We heard a lot of things about how I had some people reading like they felt like the diversity was like tokened
Oh
or
boy.
like it was just like they were just sprinkling things in or there was some other stuff about like there's all these characters that no one knows and there was nothing that pulled them together, but I think it was you
Eh,
know they were trying to tell a story of people, and
Right.
I felt like everything had a purpose. I think it was a little bloated in its cast for sure.
Yes.
Like there was a
Yes.
lot going on to focus. I can't even, without looking at my notes, I can't tell you the names of every single main character.
Yeah.
I could tell you Cersei, and that's it. She's the only one I know for sure. The rest, I've forgotten their names. But I think that people expect the Marvel formula, and now when they break it and subvert it in different ways, they're going to be resistant to change. But I think change is a good thing.
Yeah.
But our critics expected, are they? I hold on. I just want to. I look this up. Thor 2 has a 66%, and then Eternals is 48%. So I don't know. I don't trust these guys. They're rating Thor 2 over this thing. Get out of
Crazy.
here.
They're
Get out
not.
of here.
It's so interesting because I haven't read all the reviews, so I can't like compile about like, oh, this is what they all said or whatever. But I know something that I persistently heard is kind of like what Don was referring to, that apparently people think the diversity in it is like token or something like that. And don't get me wrong, and I'm sure we'll discuss this on this review. There are some real problems with this movie,
Mhm.
that, like some straight up things that literally just don't make any sense, sort of thing. But I don't think it's like it's not a bad movie. Like a bad movie is like Transformers like 4 is the one I always think of. Me and Jake saw that, Age of
Hurt.
Extinction. It was
Adam hurt
so
me.
bad. It was so bad. And I remember I told Jake, this is it, bro. I think they finally did it. This is gonna be so good. And it was so bad.
He
It
just
was
wanted to see
awful.
Dinosaur. He wanted to see Grimlock and Optimus Prime like
It's
team
true.
up, and
It's
they
true.
hurt him.
It wasn't worth it. I learned my lesson that day from Michael Bay.
Never
Uh,
trust Michael Bay.
Never. And so like that's a bad movie though, right? Like when I watch Eternals, I see the flaws, but I'm not like, yeah, that was really bad, sort of thing. Like I don't come away from that feeling. But how did you both feel? Was it like similar, very real problems, or maybe more positive, maybe more negative?
Yeah, I want to hear your thoughts, Jake, especially because I've talked with Adam about this, but I haven't
Yeah.
talked with you, so I'm
Sure.
very
Let's
curious
see.
what you
So
think.
I came out at all right. So I went in the beginning. I had no expectations other than the fact that people didn't like it. So I was expecting, okay, whatever, we'll see, you know. And when I first started the movie, I was like, this is kind of wild, like this is weird, and I kept expecting for it to turn and for me to be like, this sucks. But it just kept. It was honestly just really engaging and interesting, and like I was just like, wow, this is like really. It's definitely not a Marvel movie, but it's super cool, you know.
Hmm.
And there's like I said, there was parts of it, you know, I mostly had issues with themes. Rather, I didn't note any of like story wise kind of things, but
Right.
there was just it was just I was just pleasantly surprised, and I was like, wow, that was really enjoyable. I like that a lot, and I guess um yeah, it was just it was like a really fun and engaging sci-fi movie. That's
Yeah.
pretty much what it was.
Yeah, I would agree for the most part. I think that, the dynamics of a lot of the characters in different places I thought were really, really interesting.
Yeah,
Like I loved to hate Druig,
Yeah.
who's the character who
Mind
can do
control.
mind control and
Yeah.
and all that stuff, but like he made really great points. I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cersei is perfect in every way, and there's nothing that needs to be changed about her character. I thought like Makari was also really well done for a character with no lines.
Yeah.
Like I was very engaging. Fastest, like he was the most relatable character down to earth. He's
Right.
like had problems. Like there were so many relatable aspects to these characters.
Mm.
I also think the visuals and the
Yes.
effects
Yes.
and the CGI and everything is the best in any Marvel movie. Period.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They've master classed it for this movie.
Yeah.
And I had a great time. I also thought Angelina Jolie wouldn't be as good because I've never really seen her doing comic booky things. I thought she was spectacular.
She did
Yes.
a really good job. I was pleasantly surprised
Yes.
by her.
It was
Absolutely.
great.
She knocked it out of the park.
Mhm.
And like so I'm kind of with all of you. I actually think that hearing how bad the movie was apparently lowered my expectations. So I was like watching the movie. I remember I was like, so when is it going to become bad?
Yeah, we
Why
were
does everyone
waiting
hate
for
this
it.
movie? I was like waiting for something, and like nothing happened.
It never came.
Yeah, it never came.
I think I turned to Adam and I was like, Adam, was that? Did you enjoy that? I think I enjoyed that.
Second guessing yourself.
Yeah,
I think I actually liked that. Was that supposed to be bad?
It was interesting, right? So obviously, the Eternals is basically in a lot of ways it's what Jake said. This is Marvel's, I would say, first true sci-fi movie in the sense that this is a creation story, not only for
Oh
for
yeah,
But this is like for all the Marvel universe, unless we come to find out, the Celestials are like, have a higher power or whatever, which I'm sure we will at some point. But that's really what it's being billed as. This is like, hey, we are explaining literally the origin of the Marvel universe. And that's a really, really cool thing. And that's what the beginning was, right? We see the Eternals come down and as Donovan said, beautiful looking kind of scene where they descend literally from the heavens and kind of talk to or interact with the first humans, I'm assuming in the Fertile Crescent, as well as with the Deviants and whatnot. And we really get this kind of, I assume, infamous ancient aliens, like aliens sort of thing.
Yes, very aliens.
But it's definitely going along with that. And that's certainly what the original Eternals was kind of based on in that way. We see them teach so many of these humans, things that we know about today, whether it be buildings and farming and all that other stuff. We also see this budding romance between Icarus and Cersei. And like, I don't know how you guys felt. I felt like it was such an awkward romance. Like Icarus is just like following her around and like literally not saying anything. It's like, okay.
I mean, there's a lot going on there. Like we are seeing snippets of these eternal beings, but yes, it was delivered poorly. She's obviously into it, because she reciprocates, right? But
right,
I think the problem is just Icarus is just real awkward.
Yeah. And then like they're in the middle, like at this rock formation, and Icarus is like, yeah, I have some strong, I love you, sir. It's just like, okay.
I love you, baby.
It's like, okay. And not only does she accept it, they literally have sex on the spot, like at that specific rock.
That's gotta be uncomfortable. And then they come back there and they're like, I like this spot.
Yeah.
When they know, they know. They don't need to waste time. Honestly, though, I thought that was another thing that I saw so many people like up in arms about, like, oh my god, a sex scene in a Marvel movie? Like, what's going on?
Has there never been a sex scene in a Marvel movie?
It's the first one.
It's never been like that. It's implied in Iron Man 1 that he hooks up with someone, but it was never like you're actually seeing it. And it's not even like you saw that much. It was just like one person was on top of the other. Like,
God forbid we see a woman enjoying herself. God forbid.
Yeah. I don't know. I do agree. What I honestly feel like is that there were probably elements of their relationship that just wound up getting left on the cutting room floor. Because, again, that movie is fucking bloated.
That was big.
Oh yeah.
How big was it?
2.5 hours,
something like that. Like so.
Oh
honestly,
yeah.
I'm just gonna say this right here, and I get the feeling that both of you will agree. This should not have been a movie. This should have been a miniseries with the amount of characters,
man. It should have been a miniseries.
The amount of story they're trying to tell, one thing I actually love this intro. Like I love seeing how all the Eternals interact with the humans and kind of taught them things. Like I love that one scene where Sprite is using her illusions to tell a story, sort of thing, and using that to illustrate the story. I was like, this is great.
That was so cool.
I'm having a great time. Or like when they were trying to lie to Makari because like, oh, they think that like, she's deaf. She won't know that sort of thing, but she knows that sort of thing. And you see that growing relationship with Druig. I was like, this is great. Like, I want to stay here with these characters and learn more. But we only, obviously, because it's a 2.5 hour movie, we have to keep going. And that's part of why I feel like the relationship between Icarus and Cersei was also rushed in a way.
I think that the bloatedness of it was their biggest problem. It was the way I described this movie. It's an Avengers level movie with characters that you have no idea who they are. Guardians of the Galaxy, I think, was a really great introduction to characters that so many people knew because there was 4 of them, and that was kind of it. It's like, then we can focus on them. We have a good time. Here, there's like 30 of them, plus the guys like cameraman, and then like plus the Deviants, plus like the giant embodied space head, plus this guy who's like an ancient swordsman or something from the post-credit scene. Like, what's going on here? Like, who's who? Where am I?
Like that's just, that's it's bad, kind of like what Donovan was saying, where like he doesn't even remember the characters' names. He remembers like their powers and like that they were in the movie, but like you still don't remember them. Maybe you remember the actors just because the actors are so famous.
Oh, I remember Karun. Yeah. That's the only one I remember.
Who?
Karun,
the camera guy.
The camera.
See, I don't know. I have no clue.
Your favorite Indian uncle.
I only remember Cersei, and
that's because she's the cool one. She's the perfect one.
I'm a certified Cersei simp, and I'm not apologizing for anything. Like, she was the best character. Also, Sprite, now that you said that character, I forgot about that character existed. I thought that was the most random, frustrating character in this whole movie.
Oh, there was so much angst wrapped up in that character.
Why was I made so small? It's like, I don't know.
It's like, get it? That sucks. You can never so character Sprite, she was, they're all different kind of people. Like the Eternals are made in different molds. She is a teenage girl. That is the body that she is in. And so throughout these thousands of years, she is unable to age. And so she's like, number one, I can't be in the same place for too long. I can't get involved in any sort of relationships because it's weird,
Right.
And kudos to them for not going the lolly route, Kudos to them.
It's such an interesting conflict for sure, but to Donna's point, like God, like she has as much angst as like a
she's
Fall Out
super
Boy
angsty.
album.
It's annoying.
Yeah.
It's annoying.
It's like Fall Out Boy and Linkin Park combined with her.
Her personality matched the body she was in. Maybe that's why, like the fact that she went so far to just blindly serve Icarus during all the fall in the end, which I'm sure we'll get to more.
But she loves him.
That was the only reason, which I thought was frustrating. Like I felt like he could have done anything, and she was like, "I'm ride or die for this guy," but he doesn't even know that she feels that way. And it's like you couldn't even confess. Like he didn't even give you like good points to convince you. You were just like, "Nope, fuck it, I'm all in."
Icarus is too busy brooding and thinking about what God thinks to even have a thought about Sprite.
He's thinking about God and that spot on the rocks. That's all he had in his mind the whole movie.
And Cersei, because he is hung up.
Your boy was definitely hung up.
Sprung.
When he literally goes like, Cersei, I'm really sorry about what I've done to you. Like literally centuries ago, it's like, bro, this man has been thinking about this for every day since he broke up.
And she's like, woman. I've moved on. Yeah. You left, I moved on. Leave me alone. Yeah. I have a new boyfriend.
Yeah, like goddamn, your boy was definitely hung up, and that's the thing about this movie too. Like kind of like what Donovan and Jake were saying is that because there's so many characters and because there's so much that you're cramming into this 2.5 hour running time. Actually reminds me of Dune in the sense that there's just simply not enough time to actually show you what's going on, so they just tell you. Like there's one point where Kingo, played by Kumail Nanjiani, he's like, "Oh yeah, Sprite is in love with Icarus," and like there's never anything to indicate that beforehand. There's no like little subtle foreshadowing or whatever. It's just like, yeah, he tells us because there's no other way to do it. There's not enough time.
He drops a lot of that stuff. He's just like, I'm really good at reading people. I don't understand. Like, come on, guys. It was pretty obvious.
and also in the same way that Icarus ditched Cersei and ghosted, he technically did the same thing to Sprite. And Sprite was just, not only did she stay with his ex-girlfriend and live with her forever, but she's just like, nope, I'm sprung on it. I'm stuck here. Like, I don't know what's going on. Also, Kingo just they realized at the end of the movie, they were like, wait, we got too much going on. This guy, he's just not going to be a part of the third act. And he just fucking dipped.
Yeah, he dipped, yo. Yeah. I realized at the end, I'm like, I was like, wait a minute, are we missing somebody?
Yeah. This guy was literally, he was that, what's the word for the people who are always in the middle? Both sides have points.
He's a centrist.
He's the enlightened centrist. Like,
I just want the grill. Come on.
listen, guys. Both sides have points, and because of that, I'm just gonna leave. And he literally did leave. He literally just didn't do anything for the third act.
And then he comes back at the end. He's just like, "Oh, hey, I'm back here. What's up?"
Glad it all worked out. And it's like, yeah, thanks for your help, asshole. Like, what?
And he is literally like the only person with I guess other than Thena, he's like one of the few people that can actually do offensive abilities to fight fight this guy.
That, and it's also interesting too because you would think that Kingo, out of almost all the characters, would have the most connection with humans. He's been a movie star for generations, right?
He brought his boy with him.
he literally brought Karun with him everywhere he went. So you would think like, hey, yo, Kingo, he's done all these things that he would care for the humans and not want to see them destroyed. But he's like, actually, it might be worth blowing up the planet if it means that we're gonna like birth more life around the universe. And it's
Which
like,
is like a fair point. A fair point. It's the
Yeah.
forest fire idea.
And he
But
said that in front of Karun.
yeah,
yeah,
He said that in front of him. He recorded him saying that.
I know.
What?
Poor Karun. Poor dude. He's got so much on his plate. Trauma.
He's just doing his best.
For real. So
Sheesh.
a lot of stuff kind of going on in this movie. So if we go to the beginning, right, we're introduced to Cersei, and we see all these characters, and eventually we find out that they're all living amongst themselves. But the inciting incident is basically that the Deviants are back. And like,
What are the Deviants, Adam?
what are the Deviants? They're the
There's
villains
a
of this
website called
movie.
DeviantArt. All right.
Oh, no.
My OC.
A bunch
no.
of gaming artists.
Oh no, we're going a dark path right now.
Oh no.
So the deviants in this movie, I'm just gonna say it right now. Like, this is one of the biggest wasted opportunities of this movie.
Oh,
One,
yeah.
they're like really just lizards or like monsters. Like at first, like they're not interesting, and the moment they become interesting, one, when you hear that they're also a creation of the Celestials, the first creation or the Eternals, and two, when they start gaining sentience, like, okay, you're thinking it's gonna go somewhere, and then it never does. The deviant just gets killed by Athena. It's like, okay, well, moving on. Like what? What was even the point?
I guess the only thing that they serve to do is to kind of, well, number one, they're the inciting incident. Number two, they're like the red herring, and then number three, I guess they basically show you that the or whatever, the Celestials are fallible, that they have made a mistake, and they continue to make mistakes.
Yeah.
It was just kind of frustrating though, because like to Adam's point, like they never got their payoff. They just
they
wound
didn't,
up
yeah.
like in the third act, they kind of got shafted. Like he just kind of like almost kisses Athena. Like I was like a weirdly romantic thing that they had.
It was
Jacket.
weirdly erotic for sure.
And then he like she cuts his head off, or she cuts him in half.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, all right, I guess there's no more deviant problems here. Like, let's just move back to the main conflict. They were less. They were second class.
Yeah. And like, granted, so from what I hear in the original comic, deviants were a bit problematic because it was like
really?
It was problematic in the sense that, oh, the good guys, the Eternals, are all white and also are pretty, and the Deviants are all ugly and look like monsters, and that's why they're bad. It's like, okay, I could see how that's a little problematic.
Wait, hold on. But wait, so I mean, I looked at the original comic cast, and they are all white. They're white as shit.
Right.
I'm glad they changed that in the in the new movie.
Yeah.
But hold on. Would you like anything else to eat? I'll come and get it
They
later.
really are.
Thank you, though.
Yeah.
That's kind of nuts. I never would have known that if y'all didn't call that out.
It's a little problematic.
When is the movie? Well, actually, scratch that. I think basically everything except the X-Men, everybody was white as shit.
Yeah,
so,
and like of course, Judge Art, when it was made at the time, it was the late 70s.
Like, everybody's white as shit.
Yeah, it's not that like, it's an indictment of Jack Kirby himself. It's more like it was good that they modernized it. But even then, like I said before, even this modernization of the Deviants, it's like, okay, well, he spoke a couple of things and then like that's it. And it's so disappointing because there's such a cool idea here. And this is something we talked about, both of you, where you said the themes of this movie, the ideas that it explores are
the
so
strongest part.
Yes, 100%. In finding out that the Deviants are a creation of the Celestials, the first ones that the Eternals were made to destroy them, and them gaining sentience, it plays on the theme of like what Jake said. One, the Celestials are fallible, even though they're supposedly the gods, the people who create everything. They can still make mistakes. They can still do things that don't always work out. And two, a lot of the movie is centered around what happens when you figure out the truth, the honesty, and how do you react to that truth. Right. We see that with Icarus, where he hears the truth and he's all like, yeah, but we're still going to kill the planet, sort of thing. But other people react differently. And the same thing is true of the Deviants, right? I would have loved to have seen some sort of scene where the Eternals and the Deviant in Crow talk about how they're both creations of the same master, how they're part of a corrupt system or something like that. It's almost like Plato's allegory of the cave in that way. But we never get that.
No.
He just gets killed, and that's it.
I think. Oh, Donovan, you want to say something?
Nope, all you.
Oh, okay, sorry. So background in the Deviants. The Deviants are like the Proto-Eternals. The Celestials want to basically seed worlds with intelligent life to
Right.
feed the baby Celestial growing inside the planet. We'll get into that later. Okay. The Deviants are sent to the planet to basically eradicate the life that's already there and set it up for
Intelligent life to
the
be formed.
growth of
Mm-hmm.
intelligent life. And
Right.
then the problem was that they were too good at that, and then once intelligent life arose, they basically fucked it all up.
Right.
Thus, the necessity to send the Eternals there to fix it, to destroy the Deviants, allow intelligent life to flourish, so that it can be eaten by the baby Celestial.
Right.
Got it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's the basic premise. Now, one, I'll say this: the explanation for this when Cersei inherits the role of communicator with what's the guy's name? Arishem, and learns about all this. One of the most visually stunning scenes I've ever seen in a Marvel movie. Right, she's
It's really
transported.
good.
You see the gold kind of motif in engravings, and really shows you kind of what's going on in terms of why things are happening and how they happen. It's just an exposition dump, but certainly a beautiful exposition
Oh
dump. Is
yeah,
what I'll say.
Yeah,
pretty way to
for
do it.
sure.
Yeah, but at the same time, to Jake's point, there's definitely some questions that when you start hearing things, you're like, wait, what? It's like, so okay, so the celestial needs to go into a planet in order for them to be born, right? But it can only happen with intelligent life, and it's like, okay, but why only intelligent life, sort of thing. And then there's also the question of like, we sent the Eternals to take out the Deviants. It's like, yeah, but only the communicator with Arishem knows that. But it's like, but if I was a Celestial, wouldn't I want to tell all of my Eternals what's up so they don't get attached to the populace, so that they literally what happened in this movie doesn't happen? Like what? There's a lot of like weird questions I think that are brought up, and I'm not sure if it's like there's not enough time to like address all of those, or if it's like what Jake said was on purpose to show this the Celestials, even though they're perceived as gods, that does not mean that they are all knowing, all seeing, that sort of thing.
I think they're just callous. They don't care, honestly.
Yeah. I think also too there probably was some explanation. Like again, I don't know the comics. I might be missing some context. But I'm sure they had a reason as to why they wiped them. Like obviously Fina, one of her big things that she struggles with during this movie is the PTSD from the past memories. And it's like maybe that's something that, is too great of a strain on them. And so they just reset the PC and, send them out to do it again. But because the movie is so bloated, we never even get a time to get that explanation. It's just here's the reason, move on, and we're just supposed to accept it, which feels kind of rough.
Yeah, it is rough because we've already talked about how Angelina Jolie's performance in this movie is great, and the whole PTSD angle. I forget the name of it. Something specific,
like memory overload.
Mad Weary, aka Mad Weary. Is the disease that she's suffering from, and she does a great performance, and like there's a lot to explore there. It's just that like she struggles with it, and then it's just like, okay, we think she's okay now. Like again, if there's more runtime, I think that's such a really awesome way to explore mental illness, whether it be things like Alzheimer's or even just like depression, anxiety, PTSD, that sort of thing. But again, because the movie has so much to do, it's just like, all right, we got to move, keep going, just keep going, go, 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 go.
Yeah, it's hard. One thing I will shout out though, that I did love, since we're talking about cool things, that Kingo scene when we like met him and the whole like Bollywood dance number, I thought that was so beautifully well done. Like that was awesome. Like just learning about his character and all the things that he does. He was so charismatic.
Yes.
I loved everything about all of the introductions. Honestly, I think most of them had like really, really great introductions. I thought like our reintroduction to Gilgamesh, where he's like cooking because he's taking care of Thena and he's just got his little apron on, but he's still strong as hell. Like I was just like, these characters, like they really know how to bring them in and out of the movie in really great ways, except for Kingo at the very end when he just says, sorry, I'm busy that day. But I loved a lot of the things that they did with each of the characters.
Yeah, that's the amazing part. One, it's amazing that Marvel is able to introduce these characters so well and make them likable, considering how many characters they've done that for already. So it's a testament to their
Yeah.
storytelling ability. And two, it's kind of like, again, a theme that we're all going to talk about, of how like we want more because we actually liked so much of what we saw. All the characters are actually very, very likable. They all go through a certain arc that is super interesting that you want to see fleshed out. It's just that the limitations of the format,
Hmm.
because no one's going to sit through a 4 hour movie in the theater. Um, it kind of necessitate that we just keep on moving, and I think that's a perfect thing to talk about in terms of like Kingo. The fact that he was a Bollywood, you could make an entire mini series about him being a Bollywood star, like for generations, sort of thing, in that sense. And you're absolutely right too. Kumail and Johnny, if Icarus, the actor, I forget his name, for Icarus, if he's like the brooding guy, I wouldn't call him
Richard
particularly
Madden.
charismatic. Um, Kumail Nanjiani as Kingo is the guy who carries this movie. He's the one who cracks the jokes with Karun. He's the guy who keeps things light and brings that Marvel style humor, but doesn't overbear
Hmm.
it. And he's certainly one of the most likable characters in the movie.
I would say that I don't think I think he was a major part of it, but I really feel like as a unit, I feel like that was the big part. With a lot of Avengers and like these big team up movies, it's like a bunch of main characters interacting with one another,
Yes.
quipping at each other and stuff like that, being
Hmm.
edgy at each other. This felt like just like a big family, like
Yes.
just like a bunch of
Yeah.
people just hanging out and riffing off each other, you know. All pretty much on like yeah, he's discount Superman and I can only do illusions, but we're pretty much on the same level with each other because we're a team, you know.
Yeah.
It's almost like a family reunion movie now that you say that, Jake. It's like
Hmm.
someone. Well, technically, it did happen in the movie. Someone died, right? So it's like you're all going to a funeral, even though you haven't seen each other
Ooh,
for
that's a
years.
good comparison.
Yeah, yeah. Great thing to kind of bring up. So I'm glad that you said that. Now we talked about the deviants. We talked a little bit about some of the Celestials. How did you all feel about, or excuse me, the Eternals? How did you all feel about the Celestials and kind of Arishem, especially given he's the one that we see the most? Did you like them? One I'll say is like I think their design is super cool.
Oh,
Um,
super weird.
yeah, it's so out there, and it almost looks not organic, but like you can tell it's like almost made out of stone in a way, which is crazy that you can see that from a CG perspective. That's neither here nor there. They're obviously they're the crux of the story in the sense that the people who instigate everything are apparently the gods of the Marvel universe. How did you all feel about kind of like their introduction, in the greater context of the MCU and kind of where everything went?
I think, personally, I think, well, yes, it was very cool how they presented Arishem and, you know, just what the Celestials are in general. Like we got that the connection points to the different other Celestials that we've seen in the MCU. Um, like Nowhere, how that used to be a Celestial. I just think it kind of suffers from the same thing that most superhero movies do that tackle this, which is like when you have something that big,
Yeah,
like how do you make that compelling, interesting, exciting
right,
beyond just the things that they're saying and their CG, you know, appearance.
right,
So I wasn't super crazy about it. I cared a lot more about Druig's mentality on things. He felt like he
yeah,
was a very compelling
hmm,
character.
Hmm.
Even Icarus, I think, and his motivations for
yes,
wanting to obey Arishem
right,
were more interesting than Arishem himself. Like we don't even see him do anything until the post credit scene where he's
right.
apparently going to punish people. Um, and that's my take on it.
Yeah. What about you, Jake? Because I know this sci-fi elements in this movie were really big for you. One of the reasons why you liked it so much.
Yeah, and this is where it starts to get out of sci-fi and more into like weird, like eldritch fantasy kind of thing. Because yeah, the Celestials are like Donovan said, like these weird old gods,
Right.
but you know that apparently like they're not omnipresent, omniscient gods because apparently they have a life cycle and stuff like that.
Right.
But they play a role in maintaining the universe and stuff like that. I don't know. It's difficult because yeah, they are more of a force of nature
Hmm.
than anything else, and it's difficult to kind of make that intriguing. Although they do that in like the Godzilla movies and stuff like that, and
Right.
um, but yeah, I think it's just hard because they are like so like you can't do anything against them apparently,
Right.
so you're just kind of stuck.
Yeah, it's weird in that way. Like I think the biggest thing about the Celestials is that it shows the greater context of Earth and humans in the wider multiverse. I should say. And that's something
Yeah.
that they're definitely exploring in Phase 4, whether it be through Loki, Spider-Man: No Way Home coming up,
Wait.
Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. What are you gonna say,
So are
Jake?
Celestials multi? Are they in charge of the multiverse? Or are they just in charge of the universe?
So in the comics, from my understanding, they're usually only in charge of the universe, but their power is on the scale of some multiversal beings. Um,
Okay.
it gets a little weird. But my point was just that one of the most poignant points in the film, and I remember Jake, you pointed this out to me and really put me onto it, is when Ajak was talking to Icarus, and she was explaining like we shouldn't just destroy this planet. Um, yeah, it's probably because like genocide isn't cool, sort of thing. But she does point out something that's really poignant in that the heroes of this world uh, just like reverse everything that Thanos did with a snap of a finger. It was the heroes of that world that did it. It wasn't the Eternals. It wasn't the Celestials. It
Yeah.
was the humans, and obviously some aliens thrown in there too, who banded together and reversed like the greatest tragedy, greatest event in universal history at that point, as far as we know. And I think that's another theme of the movie too. It tries to make the argument for one, obviously genocide isn't cool, but also the exceptionality of the human race, if you want to call it that. What they bring to the table and on a universal scale. And I don't know if I want to agree with that in terms of like a yes, us humans are definitely the best in the universe sort of thing. But it's certainly an interesting topic, and that's what this movie always does. It brings up interesting topics, things that you have to think about and question.
See, I actually, and this might be a little bit of a tangent, but I actually looked at that and felt a little frustrated
Ooh.
by a lot of this exposition about like,
Mm,
oh, the humans did this thing, because on the flip side of exactly what you just said,
right,
like Thanos was the biggest threat to the
right.
Celestials.
Actually,
He
yeah, you're
stopped on a
right.
galactic, unprecedented scale
Right.
every single planet that they have a Celestial planted in. And he's been on this conquest for a while. We've seen him trying to gather stones and searching for the stones since
Mhm.
as far back as,
But
the
like,
first phase,
yeah,
really.
15 years he's been searching.
Yeah. And on top of that, he is
He
a
is an
former
Eternal.
Eternal,
Yeah.
or an Eternal,
Right.
and like they
Wait,
never
wait,
stop.
Thanos was an Eternal?
It's implied that in the comics he's an Eternal for sure, but it's
Yeah.
implied in this movie that he is an Eternal.
Which
Oh.
is so like
Right.
they know about Thanos,
Right.
and so they probably know what he's doing. Why did they never try to stop him? Did they bank on the humans like saving everything? But if they did, that's like a big risk to take.
Right. Right.
It's weird. I don't know.
No, I actually agree with you that it's like this is really cool, but also if this is true, then what about this sort of thing? And that's the
Yeah.
source of frustration for sure. What's your take, Jake?
Oh, I mean, yeah, just plot holes. It's plot holes. It's gonna
Yeah.
happen.
If you think that's crazy, then the fact that, or maybe they talked about this in the post-credit scene, Harry Styles or Star Fox, shout
Yeah.
out to Nintendo,
Right.
love that they partnered for this, but
Yeah.
that's actually Thanos' brother.
Yeah. Eros is Thanos'
Yeah,
brother.
he's not even purple.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, what
Right.
is going on?
Yeah, at least make him purple. He can be handsome, but
There's so many things, and that kind of leads to another frustration that I have with the MCU at this point, which
Yeah.
is it feels like nothing can ever be a fully contained story.
Yes.
Everything has to be all right, lead to the next one. We need to give them breadcrumbs to the next one. And it's
hmm
like,
Right.
I
Right.
never leave a Marvel movie anymore feeling fully satisfied.
Right.
Like, I always feel like, oh, now I got to watch the next thing. Now I got to be prepared for this. Now I got to watch 7 Disney Plus shows to
Yeah.
find the backstory of this character.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No,
maybe that
no,
was
that's true.
that was a nice thing though about this movie was that besides those bits at the end, it was fairly like independent of everything.
Right.
Yes.
Like that
Yes.
was nice.
You didn't have to watch all the movies beforehand. If you went into this blind, you'd still have an idea of what's going on. Obviously, it's better. Like, so when they mentioned Thanos and Avengers, you're not like, who?
Huh?
Uh,
What's a
Who?
Thanos?
but at the same time, like Jake is right that it's all new characters, right? So there's nothing that you need to know about beforehand. And on top of that, too, they're definitely, especially if you're a fan of sci-fi, like I think this movie is right up your alley.
Yeah.
When I was watching this, I told both of you this when we were discussing the movie before this review. This really reminded me of Prometheus, Ridley
Ooh,
Scott's film,
yeah.
because and subsequently Alien Covenant, even though that's a god awful movie. Check out that review if you want. By the way, it's on the
Oh,
channel.
you wait. Which one is Alien Covenant?
It
Is
was
that
the one. It was the really dumb movie where they all go to the alien planet without spacesuits on. Remember? And they all get killed by the alien. That's Alien Covenant. I remember we both hated it.
Wait a minute. I feel this is not Prometheus. Wait a minute. What movie is this?
Prometheus is the prequel. Alien Covenant is the sequel to Prometheus.
Oh, and this is where they come there, and I don't remember this movie at all.
It's okay. It's okay. Regardless, right? Prometheus and subsequently Alien Covenant. One of the biggest things about that movie is creator and creation, right? And what happens when you meet your creator, right? In Prometheus, the inciting incident is that they think that the creators who made us are was giving us an invitation to meet them, right? And one of the characters uh, he wants to meet his creator. One, aka the engineers, one to figure out the purpose of life, but also to gain eternal life, right? And and I think that engineer just snaps one of the dude's neck, sort of thing. Doesn't even answer the question. So in that way, right, it becomes a question of just like, what are you going to do when you confront your creator, right? And if they say like, oh, why'd you create us? And you say like, oh, because we could, sort of thing. What does that mean for your own purpose? What does that mean for your own identity? And I think a lot of what this movie deals with is that, right? And you see that
Mhm.
through Icarus, right? Icarus is given the truth, and he decides that yes, I'm going to keep on being a religious zealot and go on with everything that I've known. Whereas other people like Druig, Makari, Thena, hear about this, Cersei, they hear the truth and they realize, yeah, this isn't what we should do. This is not the way. Same thing with Ajax, and that's such an interesting idea of just like what does it actually mean to be a creation? What's your purpose? If someone created you, do you have independent thought? Is there a choice? Do your choices actually matter in the greater context of the universe? Which is something that they play on as well because of the galactic scale of birth of a celestial
Mhm.
and leading to life. That
And
was the best part about the movie to me.
also, do you bear any responsibility to obey your creator? You
Exactly.
know, do you
Right.
have to?
100%. What about you, Donovan? Did you get a big sense of those themes? Was that really compelling for you too?
I think, yeah. I think that these were all really compelling parts of the movie. It's always great when you can go see something and it kind of like, even though it's kind of abstract and like how you tackle those themes will vary based on your own personal experiences, I
Mhm.
still
Right.
think it's interesting when these sorts of things are posed. But
Yeah.
honestly, the biggest thing for me that I enjoyed for these movies, because candidly, I go into most Marvel movies not expecting
Right.
anything crazy like that. I more
Of
of
course.
expect I'm going to kind of turn my brain like halfway off. It's not like Fast and Furious where it's full off. I'm going to
Right.
turn about halfway off,
Right.
and just
Right.
like have a good time, enjoy some good action. And one of the biggest things that I enjoyed was this kind of theme that like even though they're looked at as gods, like they are not immortal. And I think that there
Yes.
was a benefit that they could do this in two ways in this movie. One, because you have that play of like they're gods, blah blah blah, but they are killable. But
Yeah.
also it's like these are characters that no one knows. Like if
Mhm.
we kill off Steve Rogers in Captain America Civil War, that's going to
Ooh,
be a problem.
Right.
that's a
You
good
know,
point. You
It
make a
is.
and
really good point there.
Yes.
and while I wasn't as impacted by oh, I forget her name, Ajax death,
Ajax. Yeah.
that didn't hit me as much because he was just kind of like flashback, she was already dead.
Yeah.
The death of Gilgamesh was
Mhm.
actually something
Oh.
that hit me really really hard.
Yeah.
That was super emotional and I was just like, oh my god, like I can't believe this is happening. And I missed that sensation
Yeah.
where like anything can happen and
Right.
you go on this journey with the characters.
Yeah, and again, it's a testament to Marvel, Chloe Zhao, all the production team that you get so invested in the characters, despite all the issues that we brought up with this film in terms of it going
Mhm.
things going too quick. I know I felt it when Gilgamesh died. I was like, damn, this dude's like one of my favorite characters. Also, make sure you watch Train to Busan. That
Yeah.
he's also from that movie. That actor, badass, just a straight up badass.
So do you think that that is I guess do you think that this is all in the self-contained universe? Like that is the same Gilgamesh character? He's pretty much the same power level.
I mean,
in that
basically, they both punch things.
They punch things really hard.
There were a lot of time skips. There could have been some time that he spent over there,
in Korea.
in between.
You never know, bro. Oh,
and honestly, that's something that I personally would love to see. I know we're joking about it, but like, if they did a Disney Plus show that was just like an Eternals miniseries, and each episode focused on like the lives of one of these characters in between this thing that happened, or even in the reset periods, like in one of their previous lives on another planet and how they interacted there, I think that would be so cool, because that's kind of the other cool thing here. We do kind of have like a little bit of a reset button on them because they are robotic personalities.
But like, if you did do a reset, like that would be wild, because you wouldn't be on Earth. You'd be in some other weird alien. I can't even fathom like what that would be. It'd just be like Avatar, I guess, with no people.
Yeah, I do think Domin's right. There's so many cool things you could do, because there are ancient characters that we know of, right? Previous to Doctor Strange, the Sorcerer Supreme was the ancient one for an unspecified amount of time. Maybe they met up with the Eternals. We know that Wen Wu from Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings was also someone that has been around for a long time. Maybe they interacted. There's a lot of really cool story elements that you can bring in there. And another thing that Donovan, so rightly pointed out about what the Eternals do in terms of like just still being they're godly, but they're not literal gods, right? And that's the interesting thing, is that so many of the humans, as we've seen in the beginning of the movie, view them as gods, right? Obviously descended from the heavens, bearing gifts, things that they literally cannot imagine because they're just not at that intelligence level.
Like they are named after, like gods are named after them. Athena, Gilgamesh,
Icarus, stuff like that.
I don't know the other ones, but
yeah, I don't know the other ones either. But the thing is,
Sprite is a drink. That's what that one's named after.
I missed that one.
But the interesting thing is that even though they're worshiping the Eternals as gods, right? The Eternals are worshiping Arishem as a god, right? There's that little kind of through line. It's an interesting little thing, and again, both sides start to learn about like, oh, what is my creator? Who is my creator? What did we really learn? That sort of thing. What is my purpose? And even kind of another thing that Dom brought up was the nature of immortality. That was one thing that I thought of immediately in the beginning of the movie, is that these characters have lived on for so long. Like I remember Cersei is talking to Dane, right? And Dane's like, yo, it's time to get serious. How do you break to someone that you're dating? Like, yeah, by the way, I'm like 3,000 years your senior. I don't is that okay with you?
I was old when this world was young. I don't know.
Is it even morally right for someone of that age to date someone that young? Should you tell someone like that up front if you're that old? Like,
I mean, they're over 20. Like he's like 30, right? I think like there's an age. You get to a certain age, and then it's kind of up to you, right? I don't know.
There's like that joke that like people make, typically like grandparents make with their kids. It's like, man, I was working hard when you were in Pampers or all this stuff. She's like, man, I was fighting villains before your ancestry line even started. Like she was out here doing crazy shit before his even family history was conceived, which is crazy.
Oh, it's insanity.
One thing that I do think that this is kind of a tangent, so we can jump back to
it, man. Do it.
But I did want to call it out. I really loved, and you've referenced this actually in your notes, like Icarus, like store brand Superman. Like there's these characters that have or DC kind of like powers that make you think of all these different characters. And so I think of Icarus, I'm like, oh yeah, Superman. He's got the laser vision. He can fly. He seems really strong. We also had Makari with the super speed. And I think they did a really, really good job with these characters. I think Icarus, he's not perfect. He's having a lot of flaws, where Superman's just this perfect character most of the time, at least on the surface, that most average people see. And then Makari, especially, like after watching the Flash CW series and like Flash movies and stuff, like seeing her beat the shit out of Icarus in that Act 3 fight, which is I felt every single blow that she was doing. You were like,
this is what super speed is supposed to do.
It was so cool.
It was amazing. She did like the whole run around the earth to gain speed for the punch. I was like, shit, we're getting there. This is the good stuff.
This film did a really good job of having, obviously, Superman, like Icarus, OP. All right, he's the strongest, whatever.
Right.
But they did a
This
really
dude
good
had 3
job.
powers. He could fly, he could shoot
Yeah,
laser beams, and he had super
it's
strength. It was
fucking
like
bullshit. Like, come on. But they did a really good job of being able to kind of make everybody else seem like pretty much equally on par with him,
Right.
despite them having really weird powers.
Yes.
Like the tech guy, he was like, "Yeah, I'll just like I can disarm you. It doesn't matter. Like
Yeah.
I'll send my drones after you, whatever."
Right.
And then I don't know, Sprite even illusion master. She man, you're just like, okay, I guess she is pretty powerful, honestly.
Yeah.
Her
It's a lot
biggest villain is a rock.
Yeah, like I see where this could come in handy.
Right. A lot of it is just like everyone has their place, right? Like Ajax, even though she was the leader, like as we saw, this person is not meant for the front lines. She
No,
is a support character. She cannot fend for herself. But when
she's a
obviously,
healer. That's it.
yeah, she's healer. She's healer. But obviously, what having a healer is always important on any team. That sort of thing. So you're absolutely right in that they not only did they do a good job of showing those powers, but I think even visually showing it, like we talked about before. I still love the gold motif, right? And how it was styled in a way. It's so unique. It's so striking. Also intricate and beautiful at the same time.
Mhm.
And so I'm so glad that they went into that. I think it definitely made it because, like, let's face it, like we see so many, not only Marvel movies, just blockbusters with CG fest, right? It's cool to see something different. It's cool to see power and elegance at the same time
Mhm.
communicated through that kind of visual style.
For sure.
Yeah. So, one thing I really want to bring up, and this is a specific scene, I'd love to get both of your takes on it. They have like a staff meeting during the destruction of Tenochtitlan when the conquistadors are going through the Aztec Empire, right? And then
Yeah.
like everyone's dying, and they're like, you know what, guys, this is a little fucked up. It's time to call for an all team stand up sort of thing. Like that's basically what happened, right?
Team
So
meeting.
so they're there, and I love the scene because I think Donovan, you pointed out, Druig has been portrayed a little bit as kind of like a villain, kind of like a little asshole, in a way.
Well, because his power is mind control. You're like, this guy's the bad guy. Ain't no way somebody with mind control is gonna be a good guy. Like, come
Right,
on.
right, and this is one of the first scenes in the movie where one of the Eternals is like, I don't care what Arishem says. This is bullshit. Like we should not be letting these people just slaughter each other, or
Mhm.
more accurately, the Aztecs kind of getting slaughtered, but not really the conquistadors. And they're like, no, you don't understand. Like we can only do it for the with the Deviants, and he's like, I don't care. That's dumb. And that, it was such a cool thing. One, not only to see him of all characters, because you'd expect it from
Mhm.
someone else, someone more like righteous, like perhaps Cersei. But he says it, and also his power is the most pertinent. He was like, I can end the violence now. Like
Now
I
I
can
can
end
do
it all
this right
now.
here.
And it brings up the interesting question of like, great power comes great responsibility, but also again, tying back to what we said before about like he was given a purpose. Is it okay for a creation to go against the creator's purpose for them?
Mhm.
A lot of
Yeah.
really cool themes. How did both of you feel about that scene in particular?
I loved that scene.
Mhm.
And this is going to be like a little bit, vulnerable, but I think that was something where I related a lot to Druig as a character because, one of the things that I have struggled with most in my life is like I don't ever want to feel helpless. I
Right.
think like
Mhm.
that's the worst thing that I can feel, and I've experienced that before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the few things that gives me like deep fear.
Yes.
And I think that's what he felt, and I
Mhm.
connected with him in that moment. And not only did he feel helpless, but he had everything of power, like you said, to
Yeah.
stop it. Like
Right.
he was well within his rights to end the violence and save lives. And he was just being
Mm-hmm.
told, no, like put your hands behind your back and, let it happen.
Right.
And as much of a witty asshole that like he could be in parts after that and before that,
Mm-hmm.
like that moment made me feel like, I don't think he's that bad. I think he was the most good out of
Yeah.
them
Oh,
during a
definitely,
lot of the movie.
right?
Um, there's a lot to say about what could have happened if he did have things go his way. Because if he's like creating this perfect society,
Yeah.
if you have full control over someone else, like, is
Yeah.
that even okay? What's the
Yeah.
morality, the
Mhm.
There's like a
ethics?
consent. Yeah.
But
Absolutely. I was
I
about to
like
bring that
that.
up. He's not a perfect character, but certainly in that moment, he's the most morally conscious character because he's the one that says, this is fucked up. But Jake, what was your take on that scene?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in that moment, like, yeah, he's got like he says, I can do something. It might not be perfect,
Right.
but at least I can, like, at least I am trying to do, like, we can't sit by and do nothing.
Right.
This yeah, it was probably, like, honestly the most like the most powerful kind of scene in there, because you're just like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, like, well, number one, this is what kicks them all off. And I think I have three thoughts on this. Basically, this is the inciting incident that separates the Eternals and
Right.
kind of sets them up for, like, what happens, like, start questioning
Yes.
Arsham and stuff like that. Number
Right.
two, you know, it starts to just bring up the idea of, like, okay, like, you know, we love these people, we love the human race, like, should we just stand by and watch them destroy each other? And this comes up again with, like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
what's his name, the tech guy,
Vastos.
Bastos,
Vastos.
yeah,
Yeah.
that comes up again with him later on. And so it's just this constant, like, then that's the through line through here. And I think it's also a pretty common theme in sci-fi of, like, should we, it's the prime directive, do we
Yes.
interfere,
Yes.
do we do this? And then
Mm-hmm.
on a darker note, this is also the easiest way that they could write out this, they could skirt around the idea of, like, where were the Eternals during the Holocaust kind of thing,
Right.
you know. So but that's a whole Wonder Woman kind of thing.
Right.
Another thing I think is that this, oh crap, I just lost it. Oh, I had a
It's
third
okay.
one. I'll come back to it later.
It's okay. One thing I'll add on to what you said there, because I think it's important to really point that out, is that this is the first time, again, we've talked about the whole Eternals morality thing, but it also calls into question the whole Prime Directive thing. Like, what
Mm-hmm.
is human nature, right? Are the humans destined to always go together, right? Or is it morally right for people of higher power, higher status, whatever you want to call it, in the Eternals to grant them technology to guide them, right? And so that they don't do that? Or is it human nature to always to come into conflict like that? Or kind of like you could make the argument too that because the Eternals intervene so early in the life cycle of the humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in a way they're the ones who cause them to go down this destructive path, right? And we see that later on, right? And I think Jake, you made this connection with Prometheus when Phastos goes a little too in helping the humans, and it leads to Hiroshima or Nagasaki. It's implied at the very least in World War II, right? Which is a really
Yeah.
cool arc, by the way, and a tragic, just gut wrenching scene in a way, because you could see how much emotion that Phastos is going through, because
Yeah.
he was someone that really advocating for helping the humans. But yeah, I'll let you take Richard, because I believe you mentioned Prometheus when we were talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, well, you mentioned the movie Prometheus, but yeah, this whole, like, his whole arc is Promethean, in the sense of, like, Phastos is the guy, he's the tech guy, that's his thing. He makes
Right.
technology.
Right.
I find it honestly kind of problematic. I can discuss that later.
Yeah,
That
we'll talk about that for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but hold that thought. So he
Yeah.
basically gives people all the technology. He's like, they're like, don't give it too quick, don't give it too quick, let them figure, like, some
Yes.
things out in their own, like, you know, dribble it out,
Right.
right? And then eventually he kind of eventually it ends up that he gives them, he's working on the Manhattan Project or something.
Right.
He goes full Oppenheimer. He's like, oh no, like, what I
Yeah.
thought was going to be used for nuclear energy, good
Right.
things maybe,
Mhm.
was used to change the path of humanity irreparably. And
Right.
you see him go through that arc, and it's just it's a tough one. And I kind of remember the third thing that I was mentioned before,
Right.
that the so Tenoctitlan or whatever, that happens in, like, the 1600s, I think.
Something like
Maybe
that.
something like that. That kind of lines up with the and that's when the Eternals kind of dip out
Right.
for a way. If you think about it, that kind of lines up with, like, the kind of decline of like stories of gods and stuff like that, which is much more common. So that's just an interesting little tidbit of, like,
Yeah.
you know, the gods have disappeared from the world kind of thing.
Right. Right.
Oh,
No,
that's
that
so
is
interesting.
that I didn't even think about that. I'm glad you
It
pointed
just
that
Yeah.
out.
came to me. It just,
Yeah, it
that's why
is
I lost
super
it.
interesting. Just to clarify this, and then I want to hear what Donovan has to say. Promethean, for those of you who don't know, we're talking about the
Ooh.
mythological character Prometheus, who famously stole fire from the gods, but in doing so led to destruction, because obviously fire is a destructive thing, and that's what he means by Promethean in terms of the humans got this thing that has potential for good and bad, but then use
Hmm.
it for destruction in the atomic bomb.
Yeah, don't say we don't learn you nothing here.
uh, Donovan,
Education Central.
oh yeah, anything you want to add about this kind of like scene or anything that we've been talking about?
Yeah, I think that was another really, really powerful scene, like you both have already said and echoed. And, I loved, first off, how Brian Tyree Henry, like how he acted in that moment.
Oh,
Like
he killed
that
it.
was,
Yes.
oh, it tugged at my heartstrings in all the right ways. Like I was right there with him, like, oh my God, like how could this have happened?
Mhm.
And I also thought that it was a great connection to see, because we see how all these characters go from these flashbacks to where they are in the present day.
Right.
And I think he's the character that had the deepest connection,
Yeah.
to his flashback, because everyone else is kind of like doing their own thing. Like Druig's in the middle of nowhere. Like he could be anywhere in the world,
Yeah.
and that's fine. Cersei's decided to become a teacher like randomly, and it's like
Right.
there's all these different things. But like Fastus as a character, they're yes, they've started a family and like that's a thing, but it's also kind of like their way of coping with
Yes.
all of the different things. Like he
Mhm.
has heavy PTSD and responsibility, rightfully so, for what he's done.
This
And
happened less than a century ago. Like this shit
exactly.
is happened.
And again, especially because it's hard for us to contextualize. As an immortal, a century is like might as well be like last year to him because
like it happened yesterday. Like
Yeah.
chill.
Yeah. And so he's just trying to, with the time that he can have, he
Right.
wants to at least spend it happy, trying to atone and doing something good or bringing something good into the world. And I think that's like such a powerful connection that I felt. And that's why he was also one of my favorite characters in the movie.
Oh, he was great. Yeah.
Well, it was again one of those things where you have such a good initial setup that you actually wish you had more because it's such a compelling character, such a compelling character arc. I even like the whole thing stuff with his family. One, I'm always nervous when kids are in movies, only because like it's so easy to make a kid overbearing. I thought what they did with the kid in this movie was great in terms of his child. I also think like I've heard some people say that they didn't like this movie because they highlighted his relationship with his husband. I'm just like, guys, like it's I don't understand what the big deal is. It's like
They
I would
should just
honestly,
admit that they're homophobic. It's like, let's
honestly,
be honest.
like
It
get
was
over
great.
it.
Cute couple. All right.
Yeah.
And also, not only were they a very like cute couple, they were real.
Yeah.
Like
They
his
felt real,
his
yeah.
husband
Yeah.
was so like you could tell how much he cared about
Yes.
Astis, and like he's like, I know you have to do this thing. I know you're strong. I know you're important.
Yeah.
But I love you, and you need to come home to
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
Like I want you to come back. And
Yes.
that was real. They did such a good job with that relationship.
Absolutely.
I
That's
loved it.
Good call. Good call.
Very, very, very supportive, and again, very real. So, for those of you who like have heard that was like done badly or in poor taste, I 100% disagree. That's not true at all.
Yeah.
So Vastos, great character we talked about. Now, two characters that we haven't talked about as much in terms of their relationship is Thena and Gilgamesh. Now, Thena. One thing that also happened because it was just such a jam-packed scene in Tenochtitlan was also when she went crazy and got Mod Worry, and like they dropped that whole thing about what's going on with her. And that's where we see where Gilgamesh devotes himself. First, he knocks her out to like get her to stop. He's like, please no, please no. Boom! Like just completely knocks her out. But at the end, right, he says that I'm committed to you. Like I will watch over you to make sure nothing crazy happens. And their relationship, people like to talk about Cersei and Icarus's romance, but in not a lot of ways, I think Gilgamesh and Thena are the better relationship in the movie. It's
did we look at them as a romantic couple, or
that's the way I
so.
saw it? Like they might not have kissed, but I thought it was heavily implied.
They were at least committed to one another. Like it might not have been like romantic, like we're husband and wife, but it was definitely like we are with it.
There was a deep connection with them, and I loved that.
Yes.
Regardless of whether that was a deep friendship or sibling ship or whatever it was, like that was a really powerful relationship, and that was a ton of respect because like he didn't have to do that. Like there was, if anything, like it could have potentially even been better for Ajak to be with Thena, because wasn't she the one that was able to like use her healing to calm her mind?
Something like that.
But like Gilgamesh was like, no, like I will stop her, because if she needed to be taken out, he was like, I will do it. But until then, I don't want her to be alone. I don't want her to be constrained. Like I want her to live a good life. And man, big respect for Gilgamesh.
A lot of consent in that scene as well, because he's like, this is my plan. Like, are you chill with this? Like, this,
Yes.
Yes.
like I
Are
will
you
do
okay
this,
with
but
it?
only
Right.
if you're okay with it. And she's like, what? Like, do it. I don't want to forget you, kind of thing.
And
Right.
that was after she put a hole in his arm too, and his
Yeah.
shoulder.
Because
It was
for
crazy.
context, the alternative was just that she would get her mind wiped and forget everything.
Everything.
She's like, I
Yeah.
can't do that.
Right.
I can't forget you.
It's
Which
such
in
a
reality, it's happened multiple times
yeah,
to
yeah.
her. She just didn't
That's the
know.
crazy part, right? The
Yeah.
foreshadowing. But one thing too that I think is, again, the characters are so good in this movie. It's just that we just want more,
You don't
and
have time
that's
with them.
exactly. And I felt that way about this relationship too. Like there's little things like remember when she was going through it again when the Deviants attacked Druig's village in South America, and like your boy, not only is he trying to beat up Crow, aka the most advanced deviant who now has Ajax powers and can heal itself, he's also like, oh my god, Dina's like going through it. I need to help her. I need to care for her. And he's doing the thing where it's just like, hey, look at me. Hey, I'm here. Hold my hand. That sort of thing. Like, and you can tell like this dude is doing everything he can for her. He cares about her so much. And
Mm-hmm.
and in that way, it's such a beautiful relationship. It almost reminds me of how unfortunately, and I've seen this before, not that I've kind of experienced it myself, but like, hey, like the truth about life is that sometimes you're with someone and like they could get Alzheimer's, they could get some sort of dementia, whatever disease, where you might remember everything, but they not
Mm-hmm.
might not remember you or anything that happened, right? Kind of like that. That like you become the caretaker, and it's not necessarily fair or whatever you want to call it, but that's just
But
part
you
of
do
life.
it.
And you do it because you're devoted to that person. And I think, in a way, Marvel has shown that through this relationship, and it's a beautiful thing
Oh
to
yeah,
see.
Yeah.
they
And
I,
definitely
th-
did.
I think they tried to do it
yeah,
when they alluded to previously. Like I saw some parallels with the
Mm-hmm.
um Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff, and Hulk relationship,
Oh,
like
yeah,
right,
sun's getting red,
that
like
was
yeah,
pretty lame, though. I gotta say.
yeah, and this was like done so much better because like
Yeah.
there's an actual connection that they shared that we got to explore, which is kind of funny considering this is
Mm-hmm.
one movie with these people and
yeah,
we've had like four where
right.
those guys are all in there and we experienced them and so I thought they did a great job with that too.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and Jake, to your point, it was definitely lame. That's why they made fun of it in Thor Ragnarok when Thor's like trying to go to
Sun's
Hulk, like
getting red.
the sun's
Baby.
going down, just gets hit immediately. So I think they knew no, it was lame too. But I mean, one, I think we've talked about the relationship, but I think it speaks to the performances of both actors, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Donovan said this before. Actually, Jolie, like, I'm not gonna say she's a bad actress or anything, far from it, but she's not particularly known for one very very dramatic roles and also for like comic book stuff. But I think she played both parts of of that character so well.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with Don Lee, aka Ma Dong Suk, uh, was so good as like clearly a badass motherfucker, but at the same time you could see his devotion and shows that vulnerable side of the character, something that we also saw in Train to Busan. So you got to
Mm-hmm.
really give it up for their performances in that way. Uh, yeah, man. So we talked about them. Really, really good aspect of the movie. I think again way better than Cersei and Icarus's relationship. But let's talk about Icarus because Icarus is someone that is revealed to be kind of the main villain of the movie, right? For a long time, you think it's Crow and
Mm-hmm.
the Deviants, and I suppose Arisham is an antagonist later on, I guess. But really, Icarus is the guy who's been the mastermind behind everything. It was Icarus all along in
Mm-hmm.
this, and not Agatha. So,
Good
uh,
reference.
for you, for both of you, how do you feel about I guess his character, his portrayal towards the end, and his own motivations as a character? Because what I from what I've seen online, there's a lot of conflicting opinions. Oh, they think that he was too stoic, or oh, like he was just a boring character. But I personally think that there's not enough time to explore it. But deep down, you
Mm-hmm.
can see the conflict that's kind of going through him.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
feel like I don't feel like he was boring. I feel like he was reserved,
Right.
and I don't think that necessarily makes him like. I feel like he didn't wear his heart on his sleeve,
Mm,
and that doesn't make him a bad character. The fact that he wasn't, and it's not to say that he was like expressionless or anything. Like he was definitely like portraying emotions just in a very subtle way,
right.
right? And in terms of like his character arc, I thought it was like quite compelling. The fact that he's just like I have not like because basically he's like I want to go along with Arsham's plan. Like I've been
Yes.
devoted to Arsham for like millennia, right? Like I can't back out now. Like it's too late. Like if I back out now, what? Like I've gone too far in.
Who am I? What am I if I don't believe in this? If I don't believe in my creator, my God, sort of thing.
Right?
What am I?
And that's something that everybody's gone through, and we see a lot of people being like, I have everything to lose if I stop now, and honestly, he's not wrong. Like he's like, if we don't do this, like we deny the birth of the next generation of intelligent life. We stop the continuation of the universe, right? So
Right.
he's not like wrong in the way, but you're like, and that's what makes him a compelling villain, where he's just like, you could tell, like he's like, I don't want to do this, but like I have no other choice. There's nothing else for me.
He's justified it in his head. Like this is what has to be done. What are you gonna say?
I want a little bit devil's advocate here, because there's something that I thought about, with this character, and I thought about that perspective too. Like like there's all this life that can come out of the birth of this celestial, but I part of me wonders if that's actually really true, right? Because if at the end of the day, what does the birth of a celestial do? It destroys the whole planet and all life that exists there.
Yes.
And what's the celestial going to do after it's born? It's going to make, a bunch more life on planets that they will then plant a celestial in and eradicate that life. And so it's like, they're not really creating hundreds of thousands of more intelligent life or planets or whatever. They're creating more breeding grounds for themselves. And so there is no betterment of regular life. It's only really for the betterment of celestial life.
Right. Well,
and
I'd
like to say,
go ahead.
I don't think it's the right option to kill everybody on the planet.
Genocide is not the answer, but
genocide is not the hot take. Hot take.
This is just between us and every single viewer. You can have your opinions,
right?
but I did think that at least he explored, why he felt that way. Part of me wishes, if he was so strong to those beliefs. I thought his ending was kind of weak. It kind of felt like instead of committing to one side or the other, he like, if it was a fight or flight, he just he ran. He literally ran potentially to death from his problems. He abandoned all of these people when he knows what Arishem is capable of, and he left them to fend for themselves, and he didn't help them. He didn't help their goal. He just kind of like ran. And I thought that was kind of weak for someone who's supposed to be the strongest, and all this sort of stuff. But maybe it goes back to that thing you said, Adam, where they're not gods, they have weaknesses, and maybe that was his, he was afraid.
There's a lot to unpack here, and this is really, really good discussion. So I think one, for you, Dama, playing devil's advocate, I actually agree fully, and I think that's part of what the other Eternals realize, is that like just because you're told this is the way doesn't actually mean that it's the right way, or like it's like you're told like, no, this is just what happens. Like, no, that sounds dumb. Why would it be that way? We should make something better. And some of the other Eternals seem to realize that. Obviously, they have other attachments and whatnot, kind of selfishly, but I think that's the crux of the issue. And then for Icarus, and I suppose by extension, Sprite, the soda. By extension, Sprite, like they're devoted, just like, no, this is everything I know, and like you could tell at the very least for Icarus, Sprite not as much. Sprite's just really pissed that the Arishem made her the way that she is. But for Icarus, like you could tell the conflict, one, because he could have easily killed off all the Eternals one by one to make sure that the plan goes through, but he chose to make this entire elaborate ruse because he still has feelings for them, especially Cersei, and you can tell how much it hurts him to have to fight them, but he is justified himself to the point where he's like, no, I have to do this. This is right. I have the moral high ground. Even in the end, I will be judged rightly by God. And like, let's be honest with ourselves. How many times have we seen this throughout like human history? Where people justify insane, reprehensible actions because they think that this is what God has told them to do or something like that. So in that way, 100% kind of zealotry, but also interesting because we haven't really seen that in a Marvel movie in a lot of ways, especially not on this scale, this internal conflict. And to Donovan's point as well, what ends is that he flies himself into the sun. And honestly, I think it's yes, it's disappointing because I would have loved to have seen him confront his choices and whether it be guilty or trying to redeem
Mm-hmm.
himself. There's certainly more you could do with that character, but at the same time, I think uh, something that you said earlier. I think it was Jake or Donovan were just like that was the cool thing about this movie is that you actually didn't know who's going to make it out, and the fact that
Mm-hmm.
they chose to one kill off that character who was clearly very strong, um, and no doubt a hit with the ladies. But also something that they did was they gave him a definitive end, and he said
Yeah.
that he does not want to confront his choices. He probably realizes what's coming, and one he can't face his friends anymore because he's betrayed them, and also he already said it in the movie. I can't face Arisham. I'm not strong enough. So in his eyes, he's just like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, it's over. Like everything that I've known, my friends as well as my God are no longer
Mm-hmm.
relevant to me. Are no longer things that I can attach myself to. So what do I have left? And instead of trying to form a new life for himself and trying to rebuild like so many of the other characters did, like Fastos did after the atomic bomb, he just said it's over and he goes into the sun, that sort of thing. And
And
again,
oh,
I suppose thematically, right? Because he is Icarus, he flew too close to the sun.
oh, they did the
Yeah.
thing. Oh.
Mind blown.
Womp womp womp.
I just
get.
realized that
Oh.
as I said that. By
I
the
know.
way,
I just realized. I kind of feel stupid now. I didn't realize.
He didn't even fly too close. He literally
He
flew into it.
Yeah.
I gotta. You know, I think Donovan brought it up, and then you echoed it. Fear was his driving force.
Yes.
Fear,
Yes.
and perhaps you could think of it in a more less high minded way. That his goal throughout all this wasn't to continue the cycle of the universe, but rather it was because he was fucking afraid
Yeah.
for himself and his friends, and he
Yes.
was like, if I don't stop them, like we are donezo, like we are done. And then which is probably more so what he was thinking, because honestly I don't think of him as like that much of a philosophical person. He's probably just fucking scared.
Yes.
And the second part is that I think the reason why, like, he was like, his world crumbled around him,
Yes.
and I don't think, and that at the end of the movie, and in a moment like, and like he basically committed suicide. Like that's the
Yeah.
like that's what he did. He was
Yes.
he was overwhelmed by guilt, overwhelmed by fear.
Mhm.
He took his life. And the problem is that like nobody could stop, like he had the power, like he was so strong and so fast and nobody could stop him,
Mhm.
which is kind of like I think that's why it makes sense that he would do that, because like what could anybody say or do to prevent him from doing that, you know, kind of
Right.
thing,
Right.
which is really tragic in a way. Like
It
you just
is 100%. Which is part of why I wanted to bring it up because I think Icarus,
Mhm.
even though him, like literally every other character in this movie deserved more time, I still think it's so compelling at the end of the
Yeah.
day, and that's part of the tragedy of this movie. So we've talked about Icarus. Let's we got to talk about Makari, another character where I feel like I would love to have seen more of her. Like I remember when it's revealed and they find her in the ship and she's just like, "Oh hey," and she's like been hanging out with her. She's like, "That's it?" Like she's just been there, like reading comic books the entire
My
time.
goodness, yeah.
Eating Doritos and living the best life.
Living the best
Yeah.
summer life.
I actually like the playful like relationship between her and Druig. Obviously, clearly romantic, that sort of thing. But I still at the same time think it was really nice to see. I think it has to be called out too that the actress behind Makari, who's Lauren Ridloff, is actually deaf, sort of thing. Like,
Oh,
so big ups to the movie for actually having someone who has that. And hiring them and showing one that you can still be a really great actor
yeah.
despite that.
You know what? I feel like Marvel's been really, like, with Hawkeye and this movie, like we've been seeing a lot of ASL deaf representation. It's
And
kind of
they're
cool.
crushing it.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like cool to see, honestly, because it's like I guess I'm just used to reading subtitles, but it's
Mhm.
just it's super cool.
It
Yeah.
is, and like again, not to get too political. We talked about it before with Bastos being black and gay, and it's certainly this movie has a lot of diversity in it. I don't think that it should be a point of criticism at all. None of it feels forced. It just seems like, yep, those are the characters. Cool.
That's
That's what it
just
Yeah,
what it
it's
is. Like that's it. Whatever.
and it's also like if it's deeper than that, it's like, well, like the world is diverse, and like there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with us exploring that, as long as we do it respectfully,
Yeah.
with, purpose, and they're not just there because they are deaf,
Right.
or they're not
Right.
just there because they are gay. Like they're an actual character, and I think that
Yeah.
this, every single one, especially Makari,
Yeah.
like exceeded those expectations. She was fantastic. The
Mm-hmm.
only thing I didn't like about her character, or I guess that what happened there, was I wish we had more of an understanding. Like her and Druig were pretty close. Like they
Yes.
had like a very friendly, like
Mhm.
flirty relationship. Like they were
Flirtatious.
probably like doing something at some
Yeah.
point.
Right.
But what happened? Like, why were they not together? Like, why was she just on this ship by herself? And
Yeah.
why was he all there? Did they ever see each other? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it looked like they never saw each other again based on
Mm-hmm.
their reunion. So it's like, I thought that was a little bit weird, considering how easy it was to like them both together, because they were so relatable and cute and
Mm-hmm.
great. But oh man, I loved her.
Yeah, it goes back to what we are saying before. Like the characters in this movie, none of them are bad. They're all great. We just wanted to see more of them. It's truly tragic in that way. So we've talked a lot about the characters. Why don't we talk about more of the technical aspects? Obviously, people go to the Marvel movies to see the action, right? That's the main reason, plus the character work. And I think the action in this movie, I wouldn't say was like, oh my god, like Shang-Chi, like choreography level sort of thing. But I think all the action in this is really good. It's well shot. Nothing's too tight. And also because every character has a unique set of abilities, it makes every fight dynamic, right? You don't know how they're going to use their abilities. You don't know how
Mm-hmm.
they're going to like potentially like use team up abilities kind of together, that sort of thing. How'd you all feel about the action in this film?
You take it away, Jake.
Chill. Yeah, I think you nailed it, Adam. It was interesting because it wasn't all just like let's punch the shit out of each other. It
Like
was like,
Colossus.
yeah, I mean, you work with what you got, but like I, but yeah, it's interesting because you're just like this woman can only turn stuff into sand. I think maybe other things too, feathers. She can just transmute stuff. How's
Yes.
she gonna do this? Sprite can only make illusions.
Illusions, right?
What's she gonna do? And the other ones have semi-offensive powers, but you're just like, oh, that was interesting. And I guess that was the I guess, and I'm guilty of making this comparison a lot, but it was like a ragtag D&D group kind of trying to defeat a conventional bad guy.
Right, right.
We're just like, I'm a bard. What do you want me to do? Like, cast my cantrips. Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I do want to throw out there, just for the sake of it, Cersei had much more powers than manipulation and transformation. She also had the power of being perfect, but that's neither here nor there.
Pretty,
Um,
yeah. That was,
Right.
I think, you know, the reason I loved the action scenes in this movie is actually because everything that they do in this movie, traditionally in Marvel movies, is awful, which is CGI fight scenes.
Right.
I can't think
Oh.
of a single one that I've enjoyed. Like, I thought that was the worst part of Shang-Chi.
Yes.
Such
Yes.
good choreography.
Yes.
And now we're fighting a spirit dragon. Like, bro,
Yeah.
can we just go back to the good shit?
Now we're fighting a Dark Souls boss. It's like, okay, we're going
Yeah.
full anime right now. But keep
Like,
going.
that's why
Mhm.
I didn't really like Captain Marvel as much, because it was just everything she did was all CG, like a lot of the times. But here, like I said in the beginning, the CG was spectacular. They did
Mhm.
such a good job
Right.
that everything that happened, we felt the weight of those blows. We felt the power that these characters had, and those battles were vicious and strong and captivating, and I loved it about it.
Yeah, you could see the Eternals, especially later on in the movie, because obviously the Deviants are getting stronger, like really struggling in these fights, sort of thing. Like it's not like a one shot, all right, next one, sort of thing. Like even the strongest ones are having trouble. And we've
Dude, that's
also,
that's shot when Icarus is like getting held down and he's just
yeah,
like shooting the laser beams
Yeah,
out. That
that was
was
yeah,
brutal.
intense.
yeah, it was very intense. That's one that stands out to me. Another is obviously when Ajax is like fighting for life. She's trying to find the shotgun. She can't do anything in that situation. She's done, right? Like
Yeah.
I can
it's
only
over.
heal.
Yeah, it's over. And then the other one that sticks out to me as well, especially in that final fight scene. One, it's great to see all the Eternals kind of like try and fight together. But I loved seeing because we don't know what Phastos is like when he fights, but now we see it in that final fight scene, and it's such a creative way of using his technology, right? He's not like shooting like laser beams. He's not like Iron Man, but he's coming up with these creative constructs that are able to constrain even someone as strong as Icarus, and that's such a cool thing, right? Because for the longest time, Icarus was like, "Yeah, well, I'm the strongest one here, and none of you can kind of stand out to me." But we see. To Donovan's point, through everyone's actions, whether it be Athena, Makari, or Phastos, that they can stand up to someone like Icarus.
And the fact that Fastest, like, I just want to make this clear, like, not only did he restrain Icarus, but he held him down with wires on a beach.
Right.
Like, you know how easy that should have been for him to just pull up and the sand just lets go of everything? Like, he held him on a beach. He was not able to get up off the ground. That was crazy.
It definitely was. Now, in terms of like the whole like battle of like, oh, the Celestials like just turning him into marble sort of thing, it's like, okay, whatever. I think my problem is that, like, bro, if there's a giant thing coming out of the ocean, you at least one Avenger would have shown up, be like, "Yo, what is happening?" sort of thing. But that's like a small problem, sort of thing. Like, not the biggest deal in the grand scheme.
I mean, who's left that could actually go there? I mean, like
Thor.
Thor's busy. He's like, I don't
Dude,
know.
what?
He's in space. This is post Endgame. Who's gonna go there? Hawkeye. He's busy.
Hawkeye's gonna take the helicopter. All right, I'll be there in 5 hours.
Jeez, catch a flight.
So again, small problem, not big in the grand scheme of things, but something that Donovan did point out: the CG in this movie is amazing. There are some Marvel movies where the CG is great. There's other Marvel movies where the CG looks awful. I'm talking to you, Black Panther third act, where it's him versus Killmonger on the train. Like, it just looked awful.
It was so bad.
Yeah, and it's not to say Black Panther's a bad movie. That's one of my favorites. But like the CG was just awful. It was embarrassing. Not the case in this movie. One, the CG, in a way, the way I would describe it, has like textured. Like it feels textured.
Ooh.
Like the Celestials, I feel like they're made out of crystal or rock. Or the gold really does feel like liquid gold that's just kind of flowing through the air. And to Donovan's point as well, with their powers, like, yeah, they're CG, of course. Of course, Icarus isn't actually shooting lasers out of his eyes on set, sort of thing. But at the very least, it feels real in that way. But something else I want to add too. Part of the reason why I think the action scenes in this movie are done so well is because apparently Chloe Zhao, she insisted on shooting on location. So much of this movie is not shot on green screen. They went to those beaches, they went to those forests, they went to those places and shot on location. I think that's so important. For giving something a real lived-in, real look.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Good on you, Chloe.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Chloe knows her stuff for sure. How'd you all feel about the production design and costumes and makeup, that sort of stuff?
It was very alien, and I think that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's something we discussed a lot in Dune, but I think actually going forward and like making things seem alien, it's definitely a feat of artistic design, and I think they did nail that here with their weird triangle ship and their like space Power Rangers outfits and the weird eldritch stone face of Arsham.
Yeah,
it was all just very visually cool to look at.
You could tell a lot of work definitely went into visualization.
Yeah, somebody was thinking about it.
Yeah.
I don't even know if this is kind of like a positive nitpick. I don't even know what you would call that, but like I really liked how they had these suits that were like, like a Power Ranger where they have like these really metal, but like the material of it, like they're form fitting and it's like, this is our suit, but what they did with these characters was they all had like whether it's like a little skirt or a cape, like there were flowy elements that I thought added so much fluidity to all of their movements and everything that they did that made it feel less like a costume and more like, like you were saying, kind of like an otherworldly, like higher outfit that they wore. And I thought that was really cool. Otherwise they would have looked a lot more rigid and, robotic in all of their movements. No pun intended, even though they're robots, but
you bring up a really good point in that every one of their outfits is so different.
Yeah. It reminds me of how like something that I believe the Overwatch team said when they were making their game is that if you didn't see any of the character and just saw their outline, their silhouette, that you could know who they are. Still.
You know what they do. Yeah.
And I think that's true for the Eternal certainly. And let's be honest with ourselves, the MCU isn't always knocking it out of the park in terms of costumes. I still remember a Captain America costume from Avengers 1. Guys, he looked like he went to the Target store and bought that. Like, they don't always knock it out of the park. But I think for this one, they did a very good job, and to Jake's point as well. Lots of really good alien design. Like, it felt familiar enough so you knew what stuff was, but still definitely otherworldly. And definitely want to give it a hats off to all the people who probably spent months of their lives going to the art direction of this film and trying to create it and make it visually distinct. Because another thing is, so much of Marvel movies kind of have really bad cinematography, or at the very least, it's not memorable. But I felt like in this movie, there's so many memorable shots, so many things that either super zoomed out, either centered. That really added to the movie and made it a beautiful like spectacle in that way, and it makes sense when I suppose thematically in that you're dealing with gods, and so it has to be on a grander scale in that way. But how did both of you feel about the cinematography?
I loved it. I thought there were so many great wide shots that they did,
right,
where they would just pull out. My favorite one that I still think of is, it was one from the trailer that they had, which is Cersei's bus scene, where it's like flipping over and she just kind of like touches it and it turns to roses, and they pull out. They don't stay close to her as she's doing that. They show it, but then they pull out and they see the whole thing come down. I was just like, wow, that was magical. And they do that so many other times where they're just not afraid to, pull the camera out, help you see everything that's really going on.
Yeah.
And I loved that every single time.
Yeah. What about you, Jake?
Honestly, I hadn't thought about the cinematography, but I did notice anything. I just thought it looked cool, so it must have been good.
That's totally fair. Totally fair, man.
The one scene, thinking about what Donovan said about like a cool scene that I thought might represent that. Maybe when Sprite is like, when she does her thing at the very end, she like makes a bunch of volcanoes. They pull out and they're like, yeah, it's all volcanoes now. We're going to like, that's kind of a cool shot where they're just like not afraid to just show what's going on in the background. Actually, that whole sequence at the end, they were doing a lot of like pulling out to show you the beach and like what's going down there.
Yeah. Like when they first arrive, when the ship comes onto the planet and they show like these people are like, just they only got sticks and cloths, and then you just see this wide shot of the ship coming towards them, or like the Bollywood dance scene, like the aerial shots, like there was so much like beautiful use of colors.
Oh yes, it's a very colorful film.
I
agree.
It.
A lot of Marvel movies kind of look like what I've been told is like the wet cement look sort of thing.
Cement look. What's that
mean? Lots of grays, basically muted color palette, and this was definitely not like a ultra bright like say Thor Ragnarok, for example.
Oh yeah.
It's certainly very colorful, and it has a very visual, like distinct visual identity, and I think that definitely deserves to be applauded. So before we get into our closing thoughts and final ratings, there are two topics I want to go over. One, how did you all feel about the score or soundtrack in this movie?
I listened to a little bit of it before we got on, and honestly, it did stick out to me, but what I listened to I thought was cool. So it wasn't like, I don't think it was as striking as say the Dune one was, because I mean, honest, and the Dune one kind of gets away with it because it's so well, number one, Hans Zimmer's just great, but also it has like a lot of like ululation, so that kind of
there's a lot of vocals in it too.
Yeah. But I mean, it was cool. I from what I remember, I think it suited the movie very well, and it didn't. It added to it.
Yeah, I would say I really enjoyed the score. I'm not the type of person that like listens to movie scores like after I see the movie or things like that. If it's a soundtrack, like a song or a musical, like that I'll go back to. But I just, the one thing I remember is that, they really did a good job capturing the emotion of a lot of different scenes, especially the emotional ones. Where things were happening. The one I think to the most is when Icarus is back on the farm and he has that moment of accepting what he just did.
Yeah, right.
And he's just kind of shooting the laser beam, screaming, and like the score just creeps up, and it's so booming. Like, wow, like they did a really great job. And I think this is the same people that did Pacific Rim,
Yes,
or the same
Ramin Djawadi, who's done Game of Thrones, Iron Man, Pacific Rim. So yeah,
they did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
I loved it. I think they
I
captured the notes.
yeah, definitely captured it. There's nothing like a iconic score sort of thing. Like when I think of iconic, I think of like Indiana Jones or like Star Wars, where like yes, I can hear the theme and think of it instantly. I know exactly. But I never was in the movie where I was like, this is bad. In fact, I would say I was around Donovan's level where just like this is actually really adding to the scene. Combined with the visuals, again, we talked about the cinematography and how they set up the game there. Jake, you're gonna like this. The cinematographer Ben Davis, he actually did 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri, one of your favorite cities.
Good movie. Go see that.
Yeah, and he's done several other Marvel movie films as well. But I certainly think this is the best one that he's done out of the ones that I've seen. So again, big shout out to the visuals and as well as the music that kind of came in there. So last thing before we get to our closing thoughts and final ratings, any other stuff that you guys want to bring up in particular? Maybe something that you felt like we didn't discuss about the negatives of the film, because we've been honestly, I think we've been majority positive in this review. So any other negatives or anything else you wanted to discuss?
I still think everything that happened where like Kingo just ditched in the third act and just straight up never came back was such a weird thing that they never addressed after the fact. I thought this is just going to be my lightning round of just shitting on Eternals real quick.
Do it.
I thought whatever Cersei's like new boyfriend's name, Dane. I forgot the Dane. That I thought he was like kind of lame, and like I don't know why he was in this movie. He was kind of like a loser, but now he's gonna be like some swordsman.
Yeah, they like, definitely didn't have him do a lot.
Like I was just like, what's his point? I thought Sprite was the most constantly annoying character this whole movie, and the fact that she just like blindly followed Icarus. Like, I wish we could bring Gilgamesh back and get rid of Sprite. That's what I wish would have happened in my universe. Like, it's not even that good of a soda. Like, calm down. You're not that cool. Like, let's chill out. And then I think Ajak was an awful fucking leader for this group, and I can't believe they got it together as long as they did with her horrible leadership, because she told them nothing and she knew so much, and she still just let them guide on and do these things. Like, oh my god, she was such a bad leader. Even though I loved her acting, thought she was a very kind person. Shit leader.
No, I think that's totally fair, and I do want to touch on something that you said. This Dane Whitman guy, it's what you said before. They're clearly trying to set him up in the future because he's the Black Knight, which is a B-list character from the Marvel comics. That's what the post-credit scene was. But I actually have a problem with the mid-credits and post-credit scenes, because it's like what you said. Like before, it was like, oh, that would be funny, or oh, that was like, oh, I know what they're talking about. That'd be really cool. I feel like both of these scenes are just like, huh? Who? What is happening?
Eros and this fucking leprechaun guy? Like, who the fuck is this guy?
Huh? Like, the thing is, too, I actually like the ending, too, where you have the group splits off, right? 3 of them go into space to find the other Eternals and spread the truth, which is, if they're doing a miniseries on that, God, I'd love to see that. I would love to see kind of Athena and how she spreads the truth to other people, given that she has the sickness sort of thing. And then the other 3, right? One, Dane is like trying to confess something to Cersei, and then Arishem comes in. It's like, I'm judging you all soon. You better be ready.
Show me what you've got.
Show me what you got. That was cool. Then we get to the mid-credits scene. Eros like hops onto the ship, like, hey guys, I'm Star Fox. Here's my leprechaun. By the way, I'm the brother of Thanos. It's like, huh?
Like, what? Who are you? What?
Like, what?
Dude, made no sense.
And then we get Dane, who we've never seen for less than 5 minutes in this movie, as like the last credit scene, like, oh, it's time to open up the box with the blade. And we have an off-screen voice cameo by Mahershala Ali as Blade. And I only know that because I looked it up. There's no like foreshadowing. There's no like, hey, like, remember that vampire hunter guy? Like, if you don't know, like, if you don't keep up with Marvel news and don't look it up, you just like,
wait, hold on. So is the Black Knight connected to Blade the Vampire Hunter?
Loosely, very loosely,
very loosely
in the
Okay,
comics.
okay.
But I was in the theater. I heard that, dude. The amount of people I heard behind me or in the theater be like, "Was that Nick Fury? Was that
That's what I
Samuel L.
thought.
Jackson?" That's what I thought too.
It's just a black guy there. I don't know who it is.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't even know. We just heard a voice, and I was like, "Nick Fury?
Yeah.
Goofy? Like, who was that? Like, I don't even know what's going on." Off-screen cameo.
It
was
was
the Keyblade Master.
It was bizarre. Like I like Shang-Chi's post-credit scene where like they just went to karaoke. Like it was a fun character moment. You know, your boy Wong was in a different dimension in that. Okay, but anyway,
He was faded.
Oh, 100. But at the same time, like I like these post-credit scenes, just like even as a comic book fan, as someone who has read some of the comics, I'm like, who?
Well, these are like C-list, D-list characters, like you know,
right?
Yeah, it's like that's not your reveal
Mhm.
to get people hype about the next movie. Like, if you're gonna do it, you got to do it better than that.
Yeah.
I think that they finished this movie and they had it done, and they were like, "All right, now what's your post-credit scene?" They're like, "What? Oh shit!
we need one.
Harry Styles, I see you
Right.
across the street filming a music video. Come on in. You want to be Star Fox?"
Yeah, like huh?
Yeah, sure. I love that game.
It was
They're like going through the supermarket. They see a box of Lucky Charms. They're like, "Oh, let's get that one in there too." Like,
yeah,
like,
it
what?
was definitely like, oh wait, we have a post-credit scene. Who's that guy that all the ladies like right now? What's his name? Harry? Is he free tomorrow? Like that's what it was.
It's ridiculous, man.
It's like we got to get all the ladies in here because of Harry, sort of thing. Anyway, so the mid credits and post credit scenes were kind of weird. Some other things I wanted to mention: the MC banter was not that bad. This movie, I actually think Karun was hilarious in this movie.
Karun was
Good, so funny, and also had a couple moments of humanity too. Like the funniest thing I thought was when Kimbo killed that one deviant. And he was like, "Karun, did you get that?" "Yes, sir, I got it." I laughed. So that was great.
dude is on it.
Yo, Karun, the hardest working assistant in show business. And then also when he was leaving with Kimbo, I thought that was really cool. Oh, Kingo, excuse me, was really good too. He was just like, "Hey, it's been really great. All of you are amazing. I have to go." I thought that was a great moment.
He's like, "Thank you. You know, whatever happens, I'm glad I got to be here with you."
And it's hard to like. You have to also realize too that for him, like he just hung out with literal gods, all the stuff he just found out, sort of thing, and he's been recording all of it, and he's just like, yeah, you know, it's fine, cool. He was in a life or death situation. It's okay. I got the camera out. Don't worry.
He ate dinner with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He broke bread.
Yeah. It was wild.
He's MVP. I don't know if you guys saw. I'll send it to y'all later. But they actually, you know how they made movie posters for all of the Eternals?
Did they make one for Karun?
Actually made one for him too. He has his own movie poster. Threw it in our notes.
He's the honorary Eternal. Let's go.
Under his name, so you can check that out.
That.
It's so good.
That's amazing. Now, there are two things that are problematic that I know Jake probably wanted to touch on, and perhaps Donovan, you can touch on this too. The trope of this whole ancient aliens thing, and like, yeah, it's a meme, but like, it can get so problematic when, like let's not miss words. You say that like majority of the people of color civilizations were only able to achieve things because they had extra help from
aliens,
and it's like, come on, guys, like. It's veiled racism. It's not right, but there's also the same thing too. It's like, yeah, you were never good enough to have agency or ingenuity to make these great things happen. And it's like,
wow,
like come on, guys.
It's really tragic because aliens in themselves are very fanciful and interesting, right?
Right.
But unfortunately, a lot of the conspiratorial ancient alien stuff always ties back to white supremacism, and that is problematic. Now, here in this movie, they did not do that. And that's good. They touched on ancient aliens. They didn't hit onto those things.
Right.
And they didn't make it. The problem I had with it is that the fact that all human invention came from Phastos basically removes agency from humanity as a force to create things. It says everything that we have came from this one god guy. And I find it very annoying because being scientist, engineer person, like, it is a very frustrating thing to say that, like, you know, like human ingenuity is amazing, even beyond what I do. Even just farmers and people just living their lives, the stuff that they come up with. To say that everything came from this alien guy, it's super diminishing, and I don't think that took away from the character. I don't think that took away from the movie. It's just something that annoyed me, and I wanted to bring up because it really bothered me.
I think that's a great call out. Yeah,
it is. And to be fair, they don't outright be like, yes, Fastos is the origin of all human technology, but they
kind of imply it.
They imply it for sure.
Like, they can't figure out how to fucking make a plow. We already gave them the wheel. It's like, come on, guys.
So definitely something to call out. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the whole ancient aliens trope, it's just that I don't know how many seasons History Channel is on of it, but every time they always talk like, oh, insert civilization here made this crazy thing like the pyramids or the Mayan civilization or the Easter egg island heads, and just like, how could they have done this? They must have had outside help. But when they talk about Stonehenge, no one ever is like, oh, the aliens definitely helped them. Just like, no, it's okay. The white people figured it out. It's like, it's just something that deserves to be called out. Not necessarily a criticism of the movie, but something to be aware of.
I think that's a fair call out too. 100%.
Now, Jake, were you the one who put tokenism on the notes? Was that you?
Oh yeah, because we mentioned that, and I just wanted to get y'all's thoughts on. Did you think this movie really? I think tried very hard to have a diverse cast to kind of like just basically to like try and make it as diverse as possible. They had diversity of relationships. They had diversity of just people, the way they look, how they act, abilities to a degree, and then also, I mean, they were everywhere on the map. They weren't just in Europe or America. They were they were in Mesoamerica. I guess they were in the Fertile Crescent. Like India. Everywhere.
Yeah.
So I don't feel that it was. I don't feel like it was tokenism. I feel like they just had a diverse cast of characters. It made sense. It's not like they were any race. They just look different because that's the fucking robots or whatever. What do you guys think?
I don't think so either. I actually think the movie was set up in a way where it's just like, hey, these are the characters, and they just so happen to be Indian or
whatever,
or black or whatever sort of thing. I know there are some people who think that Marvel is like going woke and like pushing some sort of like political agenda, and I think this movie is so like sci-fi and like, I don't want to say big brain, but like big picture, that it's like, I don't think there's any political thing in here. I think they're talking about bigger themes about creation and human will and all this other stuff sort of thing. So I certainly didn't think so, but what do you think, Donovan?
I think, you can look at it on a technical level and call out like, oh, well, they're robots. Like, why did they make them not all look the same? Or just like why did they make them look like humans specifically when we've seen other Eternals now that also look like humans? Like, what was the reasoning for that? And they were so old. None of these races even existed. So how did this even like make sense? Like, I guess you can start to look at it from that technical standpoint. But if I think you start to go in that point, it's like, bro, it's a fucking movie. Like, people go to the movies. People go to the movies, and we go to entertainment to find things that we relate to, things that we can resonate with, and and also escape. And I think, I don't think there's a political agenda. I think people are just looking at this and just like, how can we make something that will help resonate with a lot of people and give people new perspectives, because we don't see deaf people portrayed in movies that much, especially not when they're like a super powerful, capable character. And I think that that's great to expose that to more people, and we learn more things and we grow, as a civilization. And I think that's fantastic. I think that it was fun, and they wanted to make sure that people could look at the movie, find something they relate to, and have a good time. And if there's something wrong with that, then I'm glad to be wrong, because I don't want to be right, because that was fucking awesome. And I love the diversity. It was fantastic.
Nice.
Absolutely. I know I've heard the criticism as well that people are like, oh, you can't say that like this movie is good because it's diverse. And it's like sure, like we shouldn't just be like, that's the only good reason it's good or something, but like it's not. And no one is saying that like, oh, a movie is only good because it has to be diverse. It's just more like, hey, they put it out there. They made a great set of characters that all happen to, as Donovan said, represent people from all walks of life, and that deserves to be celebrated. Because like, guys, like, we can't lie to ourselves. Like, a lot of these people aren't represented. Like, we have to call it out when it's done well.
And
like,
there's like there's like no there's no reason
Yeah.
that they need to be all different, diverse, but at the same time, there's no fucking reason that they can't all be. So why
Yeah.
not? Why
Yeah.
not do it? It
Absolutely.
doesn't matter. You best
Absolutely.
believe these.
Exactly.
You best believe these people. If there was just a cast of He-Mans, they wouldn't care. You
Yeah.
know.
And it would be totally different. I think Dom is one who pointed this out. Where like if for example, Fastos and his relationship with his husband, if it was like full of tropes and like kind of
Oh
stereotypes
yeah, they
about
were
gay
like
people.
super camp and
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. It would be one thing if it was like offensive stereotypes or something like that. Totally understand, but like that's nowhere in the movie. There are
They were
no
just
offensive
people.
stereotypes. They were just
They're just
like
people.
they're just like, hey, this is the character. They also happen to be gay and have a son.
It's whatever.
Yeah,
Whatever.
sort of thing. So I don't really know what to say about those things like that. So definitely no tokenism. Also, Ancient Aliens trope is bad. If you believe in that and you watch Ancient Aliens, stop. Like
Man, go read a history book, man.
yeah.
People were crazy.
Please, just like they did in this movie, find the truth of what is actually happening. All right. All right. So closing thoughts and final ratings. We'll start with you, Jake.
Whoa. I liked it a lot. I think it's one of my favorite Marvel movies of recent. Gotta say, I haven't seen Shang-Chi, so maybe that'll be my favorite soon.
Right.
But honestly, just super cool movie. Like very sci-fi. I loved all the ideas it was throwing down. I love the relationship between all the characters, and honestly, just really loved it. I told my mom go see it. I think she's gonna like it. You know, I've been telling everybody, damn, like go see this movie. So, if I was gonna give it a rating, I would say, I would give it. How many Eternals are there?
10.
There's 10? There was
There's
10 of them?
Eternals.
Really?
Cersei, Icarus, Kingo, Sprite, Fastus, Makari, Druig, Thena, Gilgamesh, Ajak.
I feel like I can only keep 5 of them in my head at any given time.
I only have Cersei in my head at any given time. She's the only one.
I'll give it 9 Eternals.
Hey, Karun is an honorary Eternal. There's 11.
I'll give it.
I'll give it
10 Karuns out of 11. That's it.
I don't think the world's ready for 10 Karuns.
I don't think so. I'm buying the poster, by the way. You're gonna find it.
I hang that up. I'm sure. I'm sure your
Kristen
lady
will
friend.
love it.
As I say, I'm sure your lady friend would love it. Donovan, what about you, man? Closing thoughts and final rating.
You know, I'm gonna base it. You know, I love Karun. I'm gonna base my ratings based off the official Eternals, not the honorary ones. So my rating is gonna be out of 10. And I'm going to give it the same score as the number of Eternals that are left alive. It's going to get a 7 out of 10 for me. Okay, rip Gilgamesh, rip Ajak, rip Icarus, 7 out of 10. Great movie.
Nice.
For sure. I think I suppose for all of us, we really seem to like this movie, and we recognize it's what it brings to the table. Certainly not a perfect movie, and I've pretty much said this almost universally. The worst part about this movie is it's actually too ambitious, and that it shouldn't be a movie. It should be a miniseries, because that's the only way that you're actually going to be able to flesh out all these characters. I believe Donovan said this. This is like if you did Avengers without all of those lead up movies beforehand. Like it's impossible to actually be able to give them all the kind of proper backstories where you care to that level, and we do care about the characters, just not as much as we probably would like. So that's the biggest fault of the movie, is that it's too ambitious for its own good. There are a couple of other things too that come with that. We talked about before. A couple of logic like jumps. We're just like, huh? Like what? The Deviants are wasted. There's such a compelling thing you could do with those as an antagonist, and then it's just like, yeah, well, he's dead now. Okay, we're moving on. It's like, okay, whatever. But the best parts about this movie are the character work, and we've talked about that so much in this review. But on top of that, it is the themes it brings up. It is the questions it brings up, which is so uncommon for most Marvel movies, especially. This is a true science fiction film in that sense, where it brings up, it shows you a story so that it brings up questions that you ask yourself about everyday life and that sort of thing. Again, I thought about Prometheus when I saw this. I thought about the Matrix and sort of Plato's allegory of the cave in that way. And so there's a lot of really, really good things. And I would encourage everyone to go watch this movie and make your own judgment. It is not the worst Marvel movie. Oh my God, far from it. I'm looking at you, Thor 2 and Iron Man 2.
Shout out to Snore 2.
Oh, I hate Iron Man 3. I forgot it. I pushed it out of my mind.
Iron Man 2, Jake, his power is he can get really hot.
He can get really, really hot.
And his motivation was, hey, you ditched me on a rooftop in the intro. You stood me up, bro. It's like, oh, come on, guys. Like, Anyway, so I think it's a good movie. I would probably give it. I'm going to give it a matinee. It's not a full price because there are a couple of issues, especially with pacing and kind of just trying to compress everything in. There's too much of the movie where they just tell you things instead of actually showing you, much like Dune in that way. But I really loved it, guys, and I'm hopeful that we're going to see more introspective, more effective, more thought-provoking movies like this in the MCU. Right? Everyone, as Donovan said, like sometimes you go to the movies to turn your brain off. Sometimes you go to have a really personal story touch you, and there are other times where you go to the movies to think about the world differently. And in a way, I think this was almost Marvel dipping their toes into that, and we've seen that through going through different genres. Like Ant-Man was a heist film, and stuff like that. So I do think it certainly bodes well for Marvel. I don't know how it's done at the box office and if it's considered a true success or whatever, but
Let's see.
I definitely want to give a big shout out to the entire production team behind this, because it takes balls to make a movie about a group of people that no one's ever heard of, and you go with big name concepts like this, especially at a blockbuster level. You have to be real confident and you have to be real ambitious to make something like this happen. 10 years ago, this movie does not get greenlit. It's a testament to the Marvel machine, as well as a kind of their track record that people are even going willing to see this sort of thing. So I just want to throw that out there. Okay. Well, appreciate both of you for coming on. As always, before we go, Jake, any shout outs you want to give, words you want to say to the people? How can they follow you?
Hopefully I'll have a paper out by the next time we do a review, so you can follow that later. But stay tuned; it's going to be a big one. I hope.
Okay.
Otherwise, shout out to Ethan, always holding it down, Noodle Mage. And shout out to Austin, who's battling COVID right now.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Good luck, Austin.
He'll be fine. He's vaccinated.
Fine.
Go get vaccinated.
Go get vaccinated. You're
please. Jeez.
Listen to this podcast while you're getting vaccinated.
Yeah, do it.
Good supplementary material.
Absolutely. All right, Donovan, where can the people follow you?
Yeah. Any words you want to say to people, shout outs you want to give, stuff like that?
If you're interested in my shit posting, you can find me on Twitter at Donovan IDK, DONOVAN IDK, just because I didn't know what else to make my Twitter. That's pretty much it. I will give a shout out to the Straw Hats. Adam's here, Maddie's not here, but they're the best people in the world. And shout out to the Tespa crew. They're all over the world now doing different things, but that's where we got our start. Making big things happen. And shout out to the East Boys for always holding it down.
Absolutely, always holding it down. I want to give a big shout out to both of these guys for obviously being on here for such a long review. Jake's in California. Donovan just started a new job. It's the holidays, but we made time, and I'm really happy to have talked about this movie. I actually think I like this movie a lot more than I talked about it with you guys.
We out here,
which is what happens a lot seemingly whenever we do a review, because I felt the
unless
same way.
We're really mad.
It happened with Zack Snyder's Justice League, and it also happened with what's it called with Dune. But so obviously, big shout out to both of you. Obviously, if you listen to this review or watch it on YouTube, big shout out to you for listening to the entire thing and hearing us ramble on and talk about the things that we love. Again, never do this for the money, but it's just a great time to talk about the things you love with the people that you love. Of course, if you like this content, please subscribe, whether it be on whatever platform it is, YouTube, Spotify, we're everywhere. And of course, we're going to be doing a couple more episodes. It's a little hard with the holidays, but we certainly enjoy doing this, and we're always trying to make it happen, even with our busy schedules. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at Adam_bomb, bomb with 2 M's. And if you want to follow me on Letterboxd, it'll probably be in the description somewhere as well. But otherwise, thank you again for watching. Happy holidays if we don't post another review before the holidays actually happen. But otherwise, take care of yourselves. Like Jake said, get vaccinated, educate yourself. Don't believe in ancient aliens. But
yeah.
Otherwise, take care of yourselves and peace.
Peace.
Good night, everybody.